Yeah. To the people of the world of Southwest Airlines.
Strong start. We got 2/3.
We got Ponytails, episode number 3 with Brandon Q, living in Omaha, Nebraska. He is coming to you live after a new marriage with a new wife, and just a whole lot of stuff to talk about. Congratulations, Brandon and Amanda. The Q's are Southwestern famous. Brandon did a number of awesome things in his time in the book business, as well as his wife, Amanda. And so I don't know, Andres, do you want to share any of those?
While I was on the book field.
Yeah, I'll share. Welcome everybody. We're on, like Nick said, with Brandon Q. Just wanted to talk a little bit about Brandon.
He's already coming in.
The guy's too humble to talk about himself, so I wanted to brag a little bit. Brandon and I have been friends for 8 years or something.
8 years what?
I've been friends with you for about 8 years now. Little accolades about this guy. He sold 8 summer book guy. 6'8", probably the tallest bookman ever. Are you? Or you're a guy to be in the top 1%, guaranteed.
Top 1% of all humans height-wise. I would highly doubt I'm the tallest bookman ever, but
I mean you're pretty tall.
I'm up there.
Speaking of top, you're in the number 37 out of all bookmen ever to have sold books as far as units sold. Is that right? 37?
Somewhere around there, yeah. Last one, when I retired, I was in the 30s.
10,000 unit producer, 10,538 units. That was your fourth summer. Best week of 1188. So for sure, multiple Mort man. He had a best day of 359. Most customers in one day was 13, and he had 8 of them were in a row.
That wasn't the same day, actually.
It wasn't the same day. Okay, not bad. Well, he had another day with 8 were in a row. And he also has a really interesting record. At least when he retired, he had an interesting record. Nick, do you want to share this record?
Yeah, so the state of Louisiana has been blessed by this tall man who holds the record for the most books sold in a single state. And it was in the state of Louisiana, where you sold 7 of your 8 summers, right? And your worst summer was in Texas, right? And you just had to get one bad summer out of it and just, put that in the state of Texas and go right back to Louisiana and sell like 9,000 units. Finish on a good career, GRG winner. Old roommate of mine there in that house where he resides. Got plenty of stories.
Actually.
What's that?
I'm in your former room.
Oh, okay, great.
Put a blue light on it, Brandon. You don't know.
Yeah, that's why I do not want to see what is on these walls and the carpet. Grapes. Jizz everywhere.
All right, so Brandon, what are you up to now? What do you do? Tell us about what life after Mort was?
What I do? I do lots of things. I do not identify for one specific thing. I think I'm like my guy. If I was going to be anybody other than myself, obviously I'd choose myself. But if I was going to be someone else, I always say Justin Timberlake. And I know Andres, you're a big Timberlake fan as well. But I like someone who's a well-rounded, diverse kind of jack of all trades. And he's funny on SNL and singing, dancing, all that stuff. And that's so where my income comes from is from financial planning with sister companies, Southwestern Investment Group, and then. Pre-COVID, I was a pretty active stand-up comedian. That's really essentially been shut down because people don't go out anymore. But stand-up comedy and all-around Green Bay Packers fan, and so there's a lot that keeps me busy.
It's the reason we can talk tomorrow. We had to do this on the Saturdays because you're unavailable on Sundays.
Unavailable certainly from 3:25 p.m. until we kick the Eagles' asses tomorrow.
Yeah, Eagles are going down, huh? Aaron Rodgers and Pat Mahomes going at it.
What are you sipping on there? What are you drinking?
Well, I've got some scotch. It's also a favorite of good old Aaron Rodgers. But what I've got for today is I've got the old Glenlivet, the Founders Reserve. This is what we had at my wedding.
Yeah, I had that at your wedding. It was real good.
Glenlivet's one of my favorites, so I'm feeling a nice little smoky scotch this afternoon. What about you guys? What y'all got in your cups?
I got some whiskey, Elijah Craig.
Small batch. There you go. I've got one of those on the shelf.
Shout out for sponsoring us. they're not sponsoring us. But I think
Y'all need to get some sponsorships. Maybe that's gonna be like the niche is like you were on your friend that's got the Nebraska Beer 30s
yeah, I was on that
podcast. I've listened to that. I don't know if he's got any sponsors yet, but maybe y'all try and partner up somehow and get some sponsorships.
We need to get like an alumni that has a solid running company and this just wants to plaster their name throughout this whole thing to other alumni. Shout out. That'd be good. It's not very expensive to sponsor a podcast. I feel like just some microphones and then that's it. It's pretty
advertising. I don't know. You pay probably want to advertise on Facebook to.
Yeah.
We want to tell everybody
about
about Southwestern and the uncensored underbelly, right?
Oh shit, that's awesome. So, all right, so Brandon, question for you then. We asked Shane Hertzig this last time. Let's just dive right in. I want to hear the story of either why you got into Southwestern and why you left Southwestern. Which one do you want to pick?
Well, I mean, I guess we're probably by the end of this thing. Maybe I'll share both, but we're at the beginning of the podcast, so let's start off with how I got introduced to the Southwestern world, and little did I know that it would be the best decision of my life. So for me, I guess it was freshman year, right after the second semester started, the spring semester started at the University of Northern Iowa. So a little, 18, 19-year-old kid at the time, and they came to my class, big psychology lecture hall, 200 people, big class, and handed out the survey. But I think that the important thing for me was I was in the right state of mind, because if they would have probably caught me first semester, I definitely wouldn't have done it. Or maybe even at the end of that second semester, I probably wouldn't have done it. I was just like in like the pure like right mindset. And the reason for it actually was it was fresh off of coming back from Christmas break, and I was so bored. Also had my high school girlfriend. We had broken up in the summer before, and then we went back, and I was like, I do not want to be, around her and that relationship, and I could go down a bad path. And I was like, I need to like move on. And so I was like, I need to like not go back to my hometown. And so then the opportunity presented itself of like travel and, communication skills and all the things that they talk about. And I was like, all right, well, maybe give it a shot. But I was never like fully like gung ho. There's some people that it's like in the info session, they're like, yep, like what do I got to do to get in? That was Andres. I was the kind of guy that was like just kind of like following the process and really didn't have the guts to ever say no. So it was like, when they do that, in the info session, where you like pick out the most like the warmest person in the room, and you're like, those last two questions that are on the green sheet, and it's like, do you feel you meet the qualifications? Are you interested in learning more? And then they like ask someone. And so they got to have the people that say, yes, I answered yes to this one. I answered yes to this one. And it's like, I'm sitting there like not sure how to fill it out, but I look, and like that person that's sitting by me says yes. And then that person says yes. And I pick out a few. I'm like, all right, well, I guess all these guys are. It's like the sheep mentality.
That's true. Oh yeah.
So I marked yes and yes on both of them. And it was Nick, good old Nick Henderson was running the show. And he's like,
shout out to Nick, stud.
Nick Henderson, big influence in my life, and Grayson Jones. He ran my interviews. And so then the first interview, so I went through and, did the first interview and was like, still not like fully on board, but was definitely getting there. Second interview, getting there. And then the third interview, I was like, they did just such a good job of building up the selectivity that, after you see behind the curtain, maybe isn't necessarily.
That's exactly what Shane Hertzig said.
It's not selective. There's a full timer back there going, God damn it, please.
Anybody, I'll take any. Give me all of them.
I need a 10-person team. I got 8.
Yeah.
Take the kid.
Like if you've got a pulse, we'll take you.
Well, straight up, that's so funny, Brandon, because that's exactly what Shane was saying about why he went and said yes and got recruited, because he was like, this would kind of be funny. This would be a cool story to tell my kids one day. I might as well sign up and go through this. And he was like really sold by his student manager, whose name I've forgotten. But
it was by the third interview, and it's like they, like in the info session and in the interview process, they're all like, why should we pick you? And what makes us believe that you've got what it takes? Because we're going to interview 2,500 kids. And out of Northern Iowa, there's only going to be 25. And it's like, man, that's selective. It's like, if I get chosen, I can't turn this down. I remember telling my mom that it's like, they interview a lot of kids, and not just anybody gets in. But then a little bit like, you know, it didn't sway me. But then when you go to the campus meetings and you're like, wait a minute, that guy got selected of this like lesson thing, that, you know, that girl is going to be doing this. It's like, if anything, that kind of gave me confidence, but it was also a little bit of an element of like, this is like the cream of the crop that we've got here. And some of them actually did really well, but it was just, I don't know, my mindset that it's like, I pictured it being like in Men in Black when he's like, the best of the best of the best, sir, with honors. You know, like you're going to be getting like the cream of the crop. You know,
sit out there looking at the Statue of Liberty, wondering if you should do it. One of those.
Yeah.
I feel you. So hang on.
So then I signed up and you know, did it my first summer and you know, 8 years later, all 4 years in school and 4 years of full time. And then before I finally was like, all right, I need to move on.
We didn't talk about this. You're the second person that we've had on here now that was the number one first year of that summer, right? You're the number one kid?
That is correct. That's accurate.
At what point were you like in that summer, if you remember, at what point were you like, oh shit, I could do this? Like I could be number one. How did that go for you?
I mean, day one, I went out, I remember day one, I knew that, you know, it was like, we're such a product of our environment. I love this story. If you like read like an autobiography or any articles on like Jackie Chan, he's such like a good example of that. It's just like, what is like the environment that you're in, you're a product of that. And it's like, you know, he slept like 4 hours a night when he was like growing up and would like work just constantly throughout the day. And so I kind of relate it to that it was like, just like they, you know, I was, I guess, smart enough to be dumb enough to like, just like listen to like what they said. And it's like, you know, they always talked about that, you know, someone from this campus is going to be, you know, number one. And we did actually, Northern Iowa, we had 5 of the top 10 that year. We had number one. I think it was 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9 or something like that. Like we just all like really like we're pushing each other to be better. And so like the first day I followed the first day and followed Nick Gamble, who became one of my best friends in Southwestern. He was my roommate and he was on his second summer. His first summer, he only sold 900 units. So did not do very well his first summer. Second summer though, he and I pushed each other and he sold over 4,500 and I was like 44, 34, I think. So like we came within 100 units of each other. But that first day I was just watching him and like he had like 4 or 5 customers, but I didn't realize this as I'm watching it. They were all weak. So technically he had a 0 day as first there.
Nice.
Just watching him and it's like, this works. Like people are buying. I know that I talked to him about it, you know, after the summer and he was talking about, he's like, well, you know, his disclaimer, you know, what he threw on there as well. You know, everybody of all those 4 or 5 people, they all did put something down. And I don't know how many of them came through, but it was like seeing people hand over money, like raised my belief barrier. And then my first day, I think I had 6 customers for, I think I always said I had a steak day my first day, but I think it was actually like 95 or 96 units, 6 customers, 6 solid customers for like 95 units. And Nick tells me this after the fact, but not, you know, when he's taking my stats and I'm reading off my stats, and he said that he was like pissed at me of like, what the fuck, man? Like I went out, you know, didn't get a single solid unit. And then this guy in his very first day, 6 solid, but I think he was like, his big thing was like, you know, did you get your 30 demos? And it's like, yep. And he's like, all right, good. Never gave me any credit for like doing well.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about, is like, you know, he wasn't impressed with it. It just creates this like expectation that's like, all right, you got your demos, good, go out and do it again tomorrow. And I don't remember what I had as far as units the first week, but when I did, you know, have maybe a little bit of, you know, thoughts as far as like, you know, being the best. Grayson did talk to me and he gave me shit for it, of like, he didn't think I was going to do that well, because I'm like pretty hard on myself. But it was like when you set your goals going into the summer, and it's like, you know, we always create, you know, your vision of what's your high goal, medium goal, low goal. And it's like, where do you see yourself being? I mean, you know, is Sizzler your goal? Do you want to be in the top 100, the Superstar book, you know, top 50? And
Number 1.
I told him my goal was to be number 1. You know, it's like, why would you set any goal lower than being the best? But so, you know, I knew that it was a long summer, but it definitely, that second week, I think my second week I had 482 units and I was like, all right, I can do this, and had, you know, visions of being the best in Superstar book. I'd look at it every morning and see where you rank. And it's, you know, motivation all throughout the summer. And yeah, it worked out.
Hell yeah, man.
Where were you? You were selling in Louisiana that summer, right? As
Oh
with
yeah.
pretty much every other summer. What was your turf like that first summer? Like, what was, I know Louisiana is all about, weak customers, typically speaking, poor, like uneducated. There's got to be some funny stories from
You,
that first summer.
yeah, tell us some shocking moments. Also, do you remember your first store? We didn't ask this to Shane or to Jeff, but the first store is always a funny story as well.
Yeah, yeah, I remember the first door because and especially like that's when you're on the full timing. I've told the story of my first day over 100 times because that's like part of like one of the meetings that you have when you're a full timer is like trying to create the image to like help them see what the first day is like. And so I always talked about that when I was recruiting of like what the very first day looked like for me, the pit in my stomach of Nick driving me in my turf to the very first house. And it's like, all right, like the Sunday night before, we got the week 0 meeting. And then that night you go and if you've got a good manager roommate, they'll take you in your turf and actually take you to where your first door is. That's where I think a lot of people, if they get lazy on that and like, it's too late. You get some first years that start in some area that they shouldn't be working, and that can derail a kid's summer before it even gets started, and some of them go home. But Nick did a good job. Like I said, like I owe Henderson a lot of credit. I owe Grayson a lot of credit. I owe Nick Gamble a lot of credit for just creating an environment where I was able to succeed. But the very first door, we went to there the night before. It was a pretty small little house that I remember it had a little cement, little stoop that I was going to run up to and pulled into it. It was probably 7. I think, you start super early when you're super close. It's like, that's another one of those, that's like, you're starting at like 7:15 or 7:20. I think it was like 7:33 a.m. was the knock time and ran up to the house, had my little bag and knocked on the door, took my steps back. And it was an old black grandma. And she didn't have any kids. So it was like, are you the mom here? And she's like, I ain't got no kids. And I was like, all right, thank you, ma'am. And then like just sprinted back to my car. And so it was not a super noteworthy first house. And then I think driving down the road, and I can just vividly, I'll never forget the image of that road. And if we went back to Louisiana, I went to Beauregard Parish and in the town of DeRidder in the outskirts, I could easily take you there. And then like the second house I got to was like a tiny, not like a full-fledged trailer park, but it was like you get off it because it was kind of a main highway. And there was like a handful of little trailers there and knocked on a few doors, maybe talked to a couple people in there. And I ended up going back to in that little trailer park 3 times that first day. I knocked on the same lady's door, and the second time she was kind of like rude to me. And then the third time she was actually like she felt bad for me because I was like, I recognized it the third time I went to her. The second time I like went through the approach and she's like, you've been here before. And I was like, no. And she's like, I'm still not interested. But then the third time I was like, wait, have I been here? And she's like, yeah, a couple times. I was like, all right, sorry about that. And I like ran away. So I'll save you the 20-minute spiel. When we're giving it to the prospective first year student, it's like I went to like a lot of detail and probably went 20 minutes of just describing everything about my first day. But a couple of the highlights of the first day, my first customer, my first sit down was a Mennonite family, and I was showing the Explore and Learns, and I think I got the husband objection, but I went through it all right. My first customer was probably, I think, 11:30 in the morning on that first day. And it was in a trailer, single wide trailer, not the best prospect as far as, these guys got money, but you're not discriminating. It's like, just work, just see the people. But she was probably a good 3 bills. This was a large lady, and she bought all of the kids' books. So at the time I was 26 units, and she put down half on it. I can't remember if her check even went through, but it was still technically solid units. And then I sold some volume libraries, full volume library set in the afternoon. Couple other afternoon sales. I remember in the evening, a gravy sale or 2, and just felt pretty good about working. But I remember I got home and it was like I had this realization when it was like finally like time to like finish your last knock, and it's like 9:38 or whatever, and it's like, all right, time to go home. All right, and I get to do that for 72 days in a row, basically. But I had this realization that it's like I didn't touch the food that I had. Like, it sat in my back seat all day because I was just so focused on like next family, 30 demos, marking on the goal card.
You
Didn't touch my food.
brainwashed is what you're telling us.
What's that?
You're sufficiently brainwashed.
Oh yeah. I was like, just like blinders on, just going to work, doing my job.
Sufficiently brainwashed. Of all the first years that summer, Brandon Q starting off right. So that's awesome, because you got
the other part though. Gotta finish with this. I didn't finish my didn't eat my food at all. Didn't touch it. But I didn't pee the whole day.
Yeah, that sounds terrible. I tried that my first day, my second summer, and it was like dark coming out at the end of the day. And I don't know. I don't recommend holding your pee in for 14 hours.
I didn't think about it once.
No, right. But anyway, that's why you were successful. That's why you had an amazing 8-summer run. Let's like talk more about like the more interesting things. I remember listening to you talk on a PC call where you hit PC and you're just talking about the random ways you would have fun in like your 6th or 7th summer, whatever summer it was. I remember I was in New England, you were in Louisiana. You were talking about like making jokes in your sit downs of how when they ask, oh, you're not from here, you're from Iowa. Okay, what have you done since you come out here? And you're like, yeah, I like to play basketball with the old folks at the YMCA. And
I don't even remember saying that.
Something to that effect, right?
Probably did though. That's so what it's all about. I feel like that's one of the like keys to success is being able to just like entertain yourself and just make it fun and mix it up, keeping variety. Yet we're all creatures of habit, but things get stale, and so keeping things fresh with however you can.
Well, you're a comedian right now, so it's like part of you, right? You've always been just like a funny guy, just in your own self-delighting kind of way. You don't smile a lot. But, how did
you saying that based off of how you know me, or like what are you saying that I don't smile a lot based?
Well, I've lived with you, Brandon. That's just. It's not like you're an unhappy person, like you're not depressed or anything. You just don't smile a whole bunch, but you find ways.
Bookfield Brandon and day-to-day living, in Omaha Brandon can be two totally separate people. I mean,
that's fair.
People are always like, oh, Brandon, you're such a driver and an analytical type. And driver definitely led on the book field as well, but I definitely had the entertainer element when it comes to selling on the book field, and that's not necessarily just my personality. I might be more, holy moly, that needs to stop before I turn that sound off. Well, then I'm hearing what I'm
He never smiles ever.
Yeah, check out Amanda's Instagram stories. He never smiles.
Andy Laws commented that maybe he just never smiled around you, Nick.
Okay.
Yeah, you didn't make me happy. No, when I was if
Getting on the host, I love it. Keep going.
Right,
I smiled really well on the book field because they said that it's like, when you're approaching, it's like smile and you've got like the 6 things that you need to do. And there was why I always coached, especially the males on this, that I always said that if you think you're smiling enough, you are not. And if you think you're smiling too much, then you're smiling the right amount. There was only like 1 in 20 people that it's like, actually, you are smiling too much. That's creepy, man. Tone it down. But everybody else, like, they really needed that. And I think I did a really good job of that as generally speaking.
What's up, Pippa?
It's one of the children.
Here's Peep Shite.
Peeps.
Gonna increase our viewership just because we have cute corgis on.
Yeah, actually, I need to get my roommate's corgi. There's Georgia.
Georgia
and I moved in.
Best friend Nick.
Yeah, what's up, Georgia? Georgia and I moved in together on the same day with Brandon and Amanda. And I'll tell you this.
The day you moved in?
Yeah, the day that I moved in, we picked her up. And I remember I was just like, needing to move into a new place. And I was gracious.
I just didn't know it was the same day. I remember that,
Yeah.
the success that you and I had while we were watching Portlandia and George was outside pooping. We didn't have the fence. We didn't have the yard fenced in yet. So we had to stay with her every step. And she took that first dump. And that was a big moment. I'll never forget that moment. And I'm glad that you were a part of it, Nick.
Oh my gosh. Thank
You're
you.
gonna be such a good dad, Brandon. Oh my God.
I was very nervous living with Brandon because he's 6'8". I'm 6'4", and it's rare that people are taller than me. And this guy who sold more books in one state than any other person and always looked down on me, literally. I was just like, this guy, and we just get a little high and watch Portlandia and take our new dog out to go poop and celebrate. It was awesome. I was like,
Times, man.
that's when I knew I would, really like hanging out with Brandon, and it's been a good time. So
Very, very enjoyable.
Someone else that really likes hanging out with you is your wife, hopefully. But that she's a book chick, also a book chick. Tell us about that story. How did you guys? What happened? How did y'all fall in love? Book couple. Here we go. Oh, she's right there.
She's giving me the look right here. I don't know. I feel like she should probably know the story.
Careful, Amanda. You can join if you want.
I'll just listen, but he can tell it. But he can tell his version, and then I can tell my version, and then Andres can tell his version of
The
it.
actual way it happened. I want people to hear what you have to say about this. You go ahead, Brendan. Let's hear. Let's put you on the spot first.
How we met?
Yeah, tell us a story about how you made a book couple successful. Because there's been a lot of book couples that are not successful. And then there's like my brother and his wife met selling books, right? But then there's been people where they were dating in Southwestern, and you're like,
And it didn't work, like you and his wife and
exactly. But how did you and your wife work out? Let's hear about this.
So the first interest was sparked by the fact that she was on the cover of the Pace Setter. So, and she met the initial criteria. That was my fifth summer. It was like she hit 600 units, was on the Pace Setter, and it was like, oh, Nebraska Lincoln. It's like, all right, that's someone that's in our force group, and it's like, I will. I'm sure she'll be part of Get Backs, and so it was like mental note, like pay attention to that individual. And then we got back at checkout, and I was at the mall because big checks, we got to spend our money. So we're at the mall during checkout, and I'm with like Nate and Dakota and Chris and the gang. We're there. We're like in the food court, and then I see Amanda and one or the other guy at least. I don't remember if there were any other people there, but it was like Amanda and her little group, and we meet. And I think I said something like, "Oh, hey, I'm Brandon. Nice to meet you." I saw, is it Amanda, right? And was just trying to be nice. And then she was, for no reason at all, just rude as shit to me and like blew me off. And I was like, all right, well, this bitch, I'm not interested. Not all right. So I was like, all right, this little snobby girl. But in her defense, so she would, I need to throw this out. So at the time, so she was actually being a good boyfriend because that guy that she was with was her boyfriend at the time. Huh?
Good girlfriend.
She'd be a good. Did I say boyfriend?
Yeah.
That's all right. We're progressive like that. She was being a good girlfriend to her boyfriend at the time, who was that guy. But they, during that fall, broke up. And but I wasn't actively like pursuing her by any means. But then on Sizzler that year, we talked, didn't make out or anything like that. It was not.
I was busy making out with Chris Q.
Yeah, the younger brother.
She's had the old bull. Now I want some of the young stallion. They
seems to happen a lot in that force group, doesn't it?
Yeah. Oh yeah. No doubt. That's Andres, man. Eskimo brothers.
Yeah, you guys are.
There we are. Moving on from that, though.
That's not a story. Anyway,
not with
all
me,
right.
though. Not with me.
Yeah.
Somebody else.
Finishing this story here. So it's like we talked on Sizzler, but it was nothing more than that. And I don't think I got her number or anything like that. I just like went back to like living, and out of the blue, I think it was that December so I guess it was definitely December because Thanksgiving we get back. So it's maybe a week or 2 weeks later, actually not that long. And then I get a random text, and it's like, hey, this is Amanda. Elena says that I should reach out to you for sales advice. And I knew who it was, but I was like, all right, I can't like be too eager. So I sent back, all my response was, Amanda who? And then she like freaked out. Like, how do you not know? And I was like, then I had her. And so instead of like talking to me about like sales advice or anything, I just like turned the conversation to like personal, and we started texting back and forth for days. You got that like all day, every day excitement. You know, you don't ever say goodnight. You just like fall asleep and then you wake up the next day and then you continue the conversation. And then it somehow led to, it led to me going to visit her in Lincoln, and she said that she was joking when she gave the invitation.
Was.
All right, that's fine.
I literally was like, well, you should just come visit then. Because he lived in Wisconsin, and it was an 8-hour drive. And I was like, there's no way he'll come visit. But I was like, yeah, you should just come visit. And he's like, okay, well, I'm free next weekend. I'm like, oh, shit. Okay.
Just hopped in the car and just drove in a road trip, and I was like, all right, well, we'll see where this goes. It'll be interesting. And you know, she made me pay for Drano because she clogged their toilet.
Your guys'
Ah!
I need everybody's opinion on this.
Okay.
The first date. Okay, so he drives 8 hours to.
You don't need to yell.
Okay, but
Go ahead and yell. Please yell. It's great.
Keep
he
it in.
drives 8 hours for our first date, right? And we go on our first date with Josh Martinez and Jordan Ortmeyer. We do a double date, and we go to Hero, and I legit forgot my wallet. Like, I'm not kidding. I seriously did forget it. But either way, it's like, he is the guy. He should pay for the first date, right? I would assume. Now, the way I grew up was that the man is chivalrous, opens doors, pays for things, blah, 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 blah.
You know, the old antiquated 1950s way where it's like she should be staying at home and cooking.
I mean, if you were going to take her on a date, you should have paid. I mean, if I'm going to take a girl on a date, I'm expecting to pay, but if she wants to pay, that's okay.
So Brandon sold a lot of books, but he did drive all the way from Wisconsin. So it's like
bingo. What I have learned, I have read multiple like men's health magazines and GQ.
You gotta let them choose to pay, but you also gotta give the option that you are going to pay, because that's
what I learned was that when someone drives a long distance to go see you, the person who is in their home location pays because the other person went out of their way and had a long drive. If it's like a 10-minute drive, it's no big deal, or 20 or even a half an hour. But an 8-hour drive, it's like I paid a lot in gas money. It's like the host should be the one in that situation, guy or girl. Hey, I'm just progressive.
Well,
I am someone that's for equality, and I think that it would be equal for her to pay at least her fair share.
Well, the fact that you two disagree on that is the reason why you worked out, because it was like you figured out how to fight early on and work through it anyway, right?
I think we need to hear Amanda's story.
No, I mean, I just thought it was really rude of him to not like openly want to pay for our first date. But I truly did forget my wallet. It wasn't like I forgot to test him. I actually legit forgot my wallet. And, I said when the check came, I was like, I forgot my wallet. But I assumed he was just going to pay for it. And it was kind of like a big deal to him that I forgot my wallet and that he was going to have to pay for it. And so I remember on our first date, he was on his phone. So looking back now, knowing what we all know, that he's such a big Packers fan, and the date was a Saturday night, the game was on Sunday. He reads every single Packers article possible the night before the game to prepare himself for whatever. I don't know. And so his phone was face up on his leg our entire first date. And he's like scrolling through his phone, looking down at it.
Look at Brandon's face right now.
It's true.
Just going to throw in my opinion is that I don't agree with much of what she's saying.
But it's all true.
That's not my recollection of it.
The point is, I agree with Amanda. You should have paid.
Right. And so he ended up obviously paying, and
seems to have worked out all right for me.
So I was very upset. I was like, I'm never going on another date with this guy, but he's staying at my house. I don't know. This is kind of a weird situation. But we went ice skating right after the date, down in the, whatever it's called, not the old market, but whatever it is in Lincoln, where they have the ice skating across the street.
Yeah.
Anyways, market.
So I have to go to the bathroom, and I come back, and he got his skates, and he didn't get skates for me. And I'm like, what in the hell? Well, luckily I found a few dollars in my pocket so I could buy my own ice skates to rent. And anyways, we go ice skating. He's really tall and athletic, but not very coordinated with ice skating. And so he has to hold my hand, and then I was like, oh, that's kind of cute. And then and he's so mad right now.
I was running the dentist system, so
Yeah.
that's the process.
Good move. Good move.
What's
That's a good play.
So then we made out our first night, and that was that.
Oh, jeez. And then you get married. You hear that, everybody? If you want to marry a book chick, just get her to make out with you after paying for her meal.
Yeah.
That's the secret.
So that's our
hilarious.
story.
Oh, damn. And you guys been after. So what summer was that for you? It was after your first summer, Amanda.
That was Brandon's fifth.
Fifth, yeah.
Yeah, it was my first. And his.
First year full time for me.
But we didn't start dating for like a full year after that.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, it was like 9 or 10 months of us just like talking and not like committing really. And then after my second summer, I was like, okay, I guess.
So let's ask this change of question here. Sizzler was this past week. I know this is, a deep well of interesting stories, especially because you two spent a lot of time, not just on Sizzlers, but, a GRG or two, as well as like all the get backs and, also stuff with Tom James and, other trips you've taken since then. Like, what are some of the most interesting travel stories that maybe it involves like a book kid going crazy, maybe it involves like a club or anything?
It's a pretty specific request, a book kid going crazy, huh? I don't know if I got any
Best Sizzler story you got then.
best travel. So is this under the umbrella of travel stories, or
Under the umbrella of Southwestern travel stories.
Also, if you want, I'll remind you of one if you need to jog your memory, and then another one pops in your head. But we did talk to Shane a little bit about this last time we talked to him, and there was a story about my first Sizzler, so it would have been your fourth summer, where you were something about a
the
fire hose.
BBCs? I think that was the year of the BBC where we went around. Because I don't know, like we still hear BBC, and I'm older now and maybe slightly more mature, but BBC is definitely an acronym for Big Black Cock, right?
Yeah, it always has been.
So that was what on that trip, the big drink was the BBC, and so I'd always just like go up to these like old ladies that wouldn't get it and I'd be like, "Do you like the BBC?" And they would be like, "Oh, I love the BBC. I can't get enough of them." And it was just like the funniest thing to just like ask everybody that, and then we were that year. For whatever reason, we were all up, like making a ruckus super late after the bars because the club was on the resort. So we'd like go to the club and then like go back after and then go like drink in rooms and, keep the party going even after the club closed. And that one night we were out on this balcony, and that was where, did Shane tell this story? Because when he like had like the cops chase him.
Yes. He just said the part where the cops chased him, but he said he walked up on you guys in the balcony doing some shit he didn't really remember.
That's one of my favorite memories because I don't know, what was it like? Someone took from outside the room in the hall, had the fire hose that they had uncoiled all the way, and we took it through the room and we had it on the balcony, and then we threw it down to Shane, and Shane was just being obnoxious, and then we were all being obnoxious. But then it was like the hotel staff came and they had like, I don't remember if they had him cuffed or just some sort of, well, they wouldn't have had him cuffed because he ran away, but they had him like held, and then they let him go. And I think it was my brother was standing there and he's like, "Run, Shane, run." And we all like yelled for him to run, and he just took off. And then, and so he was gone, and we're like, oh man, like he's in trouble. And we just like go back to like whatever we were doing. And I do remember that it was like, we went, like everything like ended, and then we were like going back to the room, and I think I remember seeing like Steve Thyden just like jump out of the bushes as well. That it was like totally in a random spot. He just like jumped out of the bushes like, "Steve, what are you doing, man?" He's like, "What's up, Brandon?" And it was like, I never even found out what the heck he was doing and why he was in the bushes. It was probably something very unsavory, but he jumped out of the bushes. And like that was a pretty good Sizzler for sure. Like that was a fun one. That's a good story that he had. I don't know. Have any of the? I don't know that I got like any great stories on this. Andres, you got something to say? Go ahead.
That was the Sizzler that I actually told this story last time too, but you and I were dancing with two different people. right facing each other. Do you remember this?
The picture.
There is a picture of that.
Our friend Katie Grazzi and another female on the dance floor. One of the most iconic pictures. Because
Right,
they're
it's
making
like
out on
this.
the dance floor, and just my face is like
I actually just
Kevin
got-
McAllister from Home Alone on the cover of Home Alone 1, where he's got his hands on his face and his mouth wide open. Like that's what my face looks like.
I
And then
gotta see if I
Andres
can
is like got his like head like craned around, looking at them as well.
I'm like, I'm gonna see if
Yeah.
I can find this. This is gonna
Yeah.
be on.
Wait, have you talked with Katie lately at all?
I have actually. I
I
you know,
have
when it
too.
comes to like Instagram posts and stuff, like she'll message me on them, and then we stay in touch a little bit. And
I
Katie's
surprisingly
cool
like
shit.
Yeah.
like she was featured on someone's story or something like that, and they were like, no, you shared her story, and I like responded to it as a book person, and she like messaged me back, and we like introduced each other, and she's awesome, and you know.
Yeah, I remember her. It's like she was like super, obviously like one of the coolest
She's
lesbians you'll ever meet.
Yeah.
Super. It's like
bro. My first
All the
summer,
guys
I
were
didn't
like,
know she was a
"Wow,
lesbian.
wow." Brandon was like,
Okay. I gotta find this. I'm finding this picture, but what you're saying that is Katie is the baddest of the badasses. She's like cool as shit. And my first summer, she was like my pump up call. The reason that I did decently okay my first summer was because she hit like 901 units as a first year, her like third or fourth
fourth
week.
week because I
And
PC'd
I was like,
her after
"The
that week.
fuck is this?" And so I called her and I was like, "I'm gonna kick your ass," and slow. Eventually, we got tight. And I was like, I didn't know what this girl looked like, so I was like, low key falling in love with this chick. And I was like, "God damn it!" It was the funniest thing.
Little did you know she was not an option. I had to PC her after that week, and it's like, how do you keep a first year after like such a big week? I don't think she had a great week after that. It's like the classic, you know, your first summer. It's like you have a big week, and then your next week, then you plummet, and that motivates you. And it's like, all right, I got to get back, and then it's like back up, and it's just this roller coaster of a summer for first years. And she definitely rode that as well. But
She was
Yeah, I
number
mean-
2, right behind Hannah Reesberg.
she was top 10. She was
She was
not
number
two.
7. She was number 7.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Number 2 that year was Joseph Reed. Reed Joseph.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And then it was Morgan Jones, Meredith
Morgan
Garber.
Jones. Yeah.
Oh no, Travis Brevin.
It doesn't matter. Nobody cares.
I just remember because I was.
You were there.
They beat me. I didn't like it. Anyway, yeah, that's hilarious. That first Sizzler. I'm trying to find this. I'm almost there. I'm scrolling on.
Have y'all brought up slosh ball? Has that come up in the 3 when we're talking
Oh,
about?
Just a little bit. In fact, Shane Hertig said the 2 things that were his absolute favorite things in Southwestern were slosh ball and Speedo Amigos.
That might be probably the more lasting legacy of anything I ever sold as far as books, because I mean I've got some things that some successes in selling books, but nothing that's ever been, you know, the best, and outside of being number 1 my first summer, I was never number 1 after that. But the lasting legacy that I have is as my run as I think 4 years as the commissioner of slosh ball, continuing the legacy that Ron Alford left, making sure that you know, I think it grew a lot under my watch. If there is a Mount Rushmore of slosh ball, that's the one thing that I'd be like, put my ass on that. I am very proud of that, and I have touched base with some current book people that it still exists. I made sure to have a good succession plan for myself, passing on my commissionership to co-commissioners. Oh, there we go. We got the picture there. So all right, that's the Sizzler. Co-commissioners of Amy Pagozzi, probably Amy Groom now, and there it is.
Oh my god.
There it is. Yes.
Oh, man.
And Jake Osowski and making sure that they continue
And you have that big white watch.
my good old G-Shock. Yeah, it's funny. So the G-Shock watch. So I hope you appreciate that, because we were on our honeymoon when we were in Grenada. There was this like group of people from Pennsylvania. I hit it off with one of the guys because he was a financial planner as well. And then we went out to like the dock, and we were like, it was like at the middle of the night. It was like them, like 3 different couples, and one of the couples did not go out. I think that the girlfriend got, and these guys are like in their like 40s, so they're like a little bit older than us, kind of next generation up. it was two of the couples, and one of the couples, the girl had like huge fake boobies, very, very big boobies, to the point where you
And
like
she was tiny.
you couldn't not notice them.
Yeah.
And then her boyfriend that she was with, he was always wearing a white G-Shock, the exact same watch that I was wearing. And when we were with the two couples, not them, Amanda was just straight talking shit on him of like, you know, her obnoxious big boobies.
Honest.
Well, she was saying that he was wearing the G-Shock watch as like a way to compensate. I don't know, like he's got like personal issues. And I was like, well, I wore a G-Shock watch back in the day. I've still got that damn watch. It doesn't work, but if I wanted to wear it as a nice accessory, I would.
not let you. No.
Well, there you go. There you go.
It wasn't that I don't know. The G-Shock to me just screams Tool. That was it. That was just the point.
Even back in 2012, though?
Yes, I hate
But
it.
it was
I
cool?
remember that's one of the things about you that I was like, I don't know. This guy wears, obviously, I was a fashion major. I'm like, I don't know. This guy wears this like massive watch. Like, I'm not into it.
I don't know what the watch games look like these days as far as people wearing watches. I wear, you know, I've got my Giorgio Armani or not, what is it? Armani Exchange is the one that I've got. And I've got a couple decent, like actual, like classy watches. Yes. So she bought me the watches. Irrelevant, but
no,
glad to
because
throw
you
that
wouldn't
in.
pick them out yourself. It's relevant.
I wouldn't spend the money on it because I'm cheap.
Marriage.
My point with that was like, you know, back then, I don't know. I thought it was a nice accessory to have. And I mean, 8 years later now, I don't wear them as much, but I'll wear you know, a classy watch sometimes. I don't know where else I was going with that, but I got distracted.
Tell us about, so that's how that was the whole tangent on how you got in. Why'd you leave? Both of you, if you guys want to answer this question, why'd you guys leave Southwestern?
We'll let her start it.
Oh,
Amanda, why'd you leave?
Yeah, why aren't you still selling books, bro?
Well, I left. I knew. So this is the weirdest thing. Like, I didn't sell books till I was a junior in college. And I remember looking at, Joel was the one who ran my info. And I remember showing up late and having to leave early, both.
The
Best of the best, sir.
Well, because I had like a meeting. It wasn't like I just randomly showed up late. It was like I had a meeting and I had told them ahead of time. Elena's the one who called me originally, and I was like, okay, I can make it, but I'm going to be late and I'm going to have to leave early. And they were, you know, I remember it was late at night. I'm sure I was like she's like, I need that one more.
Gotta get that last commit so you can say you hit your 20 or 25 commits.
Yeah. So she was just like, yeah, sure. That's
like, all right,
whatever,
fucking fine. Just come. Just show up 20 minutes late. Just tell me that you're going to be there. I'm going to write your name down.
And I did. But I remember seeing when Joel was talking about it, the sister companies, and I remember seeing Tom James. And I, again, was a fashion major. And I was like, oh, I think I want to work for that company. So I sold books because I was like, yeah, sounds cool, whatever, let's do this. But also in the back of my head, the whole time I knew I want to do well selling books so I can go work for Tom James. Like, that's my dream. And so I sold one summer. It was great. And then my second summer, I was like, I've got to, you know, come back. It's a year. Yeah, I'll go work for Tom James after, but I just want to sell another summer. So I planned to stop after my second summer. And then my third summer, Brandon basically forced me into coming back to help recruit. And so at that summer, I was just like, okay, I'm like totally done after this. And so, I mean, that's why I left, because I knew that Tom James was at that point the end goal for me. And at that year, I was 2 years out of college already, you know? And so it wasn't, I never wanted to be a lifer.
On you.
He wanted to be a lifer, but I loved Southwestern and the concept of it. And so I knew going to Tom James, it would give me still that community and that culture that I loved selling books, but I wouldn't have to do door to door anymore. And I would actually get to sell something that I was passionate and cared about. So
fuck those books.
Yeah. So I was like, I'm going to go do that and make a lot more money than selling books.
And you did. Good job. That is something about Amanda. I got to harp on this real quick. I love Amanda. Love you, girl. But she says something she gonna do it, and she does it. That is an
Does it well.
Amanda Q now thing to do. Is very man, that's a great quality to have. It's easy to count on you for stuff. So you're a badass for that. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you saying that.
No.
Brandon, let's hear you. Why did you leave, Brandon? Give me the juice.
I don't know. There's anything like this. This story will be much shorter. Just, I mean, it was definitely time. I feel like I probably stayed a little bit longer than I should. Like I definitely don't regret my book selling days, but at the same time, my kind of peak was a little bit before, but it was a couple different factors as far as being able to like really start to like build. You know, I did for sure, like especially right after college in 2012 when I graduated and had my best summer units wise, and had, you know, my brother was like number 33 first year. I had another top first year that they both came back, and it was like I want to like be DSM and I want to be, you know, the Nick Henderson Grant Greeter. I had visions of that, but you know, just the way it actually played out was that I was not building a base, and it was basically I was still on track where I was going to have to like keep going out and selling, and still I was kind of stagnant where I was spinning my wheels, and I got kicked off of 3 campuses in 3 years. So it was like every year just starting over. And it was like after my going into my 8th summer, we were kicked off of Iowa State's campus. So it was like going into 9, I knew if I did 9th summer, I'd basically again be starting really without much of a base built up. So it didn't make sense. And wow, I'm getting low here. So yeah, not the best story that I've got, but that's just how it played out.
I mean, that's fair. That's okay. Was there, because it seems to be a common thread where everyone kind of stays an extra summer than they should have.
But so for me, it was definitely a redemption summer. And I'm really glad that after the time to leave for me, probably the smartest time should have been probably maybe after my 6th, because my 7th summer, that was when, you know, I brought out my biggest team, but they collapsed. That was our Texas summer, was my 7th year. And out of 8 summers, my 7th summer actually was the fewest units that I sold. So as a 7th year guy, I sold fewer units than I sold my first summer. Ton of adversity, and it was really kind of crawling through the finish line, and not a great summer. But what I'm really proud of about that was I made the commitment. I did that, you know, in sales school. They always talk about signing your DA, your dealer agreement, to come back for the following summer before you've even sold that one. It's like, we got to get you to like sign on the dotted line that you're going to do another one even before you do this one. And it makes sense, but I did do it that year. You know, it's like the show to the people that it's like, I'm going to be here. And I did it. And I after my 7th summer, and it was like, I remember good old Mark Rao, you know, went in, what were we in, Jacksonville or whatever. And it was like, he was kind of testing the waters of like, all right, where are you at right now? Cause I know you had a shitty summer, and I'm ready have to try and get you back on board. And I was like, no, I'm coming back again. Like I signed it and have no intent of not keeping my word. And so that 8th summer though, it was like, that was when I knew, but I was like, I had to have a rebound summer. And I did. It was, I think, from the other summer, not my best summer, but I think in the top half. I mean, I sold in my 8th and final summer somewhere around like 7,000 or 8,000, which was, you know, kind of where my median or my average was, probably somewhere around there. So it was definitely a really good rebound from my worst summer to hit double growth or explosion or whatever it was from that point. You know, so it was a really good way to finish, but it was definitely time to move on and start looking at, you know, what else was the next step in my journey.
So you have made many stops in your journey, but before we get off that Southwestern journey train, I am curious, Amanda, would you like to share like because the name of this podcast is Ponytails, right? And so we're always talking about like the most interesting, like weird stories. Like one time I caught bird shit in my hand. That's kind of like a pony story, even though it wasn't a sale, right? What's like one of the weirdest things that ever happened to you on the book field? Whether it's an amazing customer who you didn't think was gonna buy, or if it's just like, this was weird and hilarious.
A lot of pressure on her, a little big build up there.
Whatever comes to mind, right? I don't want you to feel like it has to be the best possible story you can tell. Just something that you like look back fondly and you're glad you sold books because of that.
So here's something I am going to say, and for anybody who's still selling, I would recommend. My mom sent me a book, and she said, you're going to forget a lot of, because I would call her every night and talk about these stories, right? And so my second summer, she sent like a notebook with me and said, every single night, right before you go to bed, write down your highlights of the day. Good story, bad story, funny story, blah, 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 blah. Different people you met, just write it down because otherwise you're going to forget. And I have that book sitting next to my bed, and I've been meaning to open it up and read those stories. And I haven't got around to it yet. So I don't really have a great answer for that because I feel like I blocked out a lot of, I know that sounds bad, but I do feel like I truly blocked out my summers after the fact. And I'm excited to read that book and read some of those exciting moments. The one thing I can remember is my power steering went out in my car, and the whole day I'm like, trying to turn my steering wheel, and it's just like I can barely move it. And this is when I lived my second summer in upstate New York, and I remember
turns everywhere.
Yes, and it was like I could barely move my car, and so I remember going to a house at like 9 o'clock, out in the woods, dark, whatever. And the dad ended up having like this huge shop in the back of the house. And he was like, I'll fix your power steering, no big deal. Go inside, hang out with my family. They ordered which New York style pizza is my favorite in the world. They ordered a large like pepperoni and like meat pizza for us. They bought the 6-book set. Like it was, one of the best days just because it's one of those things where it's like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it to the next house. Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do, but they always say, just go to the next door. And I did. And it turned out to be, 6-book set, the pizza, which is the highlight. And he fixed my car.
You like the pizza better than the car fix and the 6 set, huh? The pizza.
Yeah. That was the highlight. So on the spot, that's the best that I can do, but I would recommend if anybody who is still selling is watching this, make sure to take a notebook with you and write down every single night right before bed, like highlights, good, bad of the day, because you do forget a lot of those really cool families and stories. Like you can't remember all of them. So.
She did after that first summer. I remember being in Nashville that she came back looking like Magnus for Magnuson with them very defined tone arms because the no steer.
What are you trying to say?
Do you have a car story, a crazy car story? That's crazy about the thing about car stories is every book seems to have a car story where they had shitty luck with their car and then someone bought and then something just worked out. It's pretty wild.
Every successful book kid, yeah.
I feel like it's destiny that it's like you have to, everybody, especially if you do this at more than one summer, but the best time to like get that adversity is your first summer, because you're faced with the opportunity where it's like, you said like, no matter what, I'm not going to use my phone during the day. Do you immediately go to your phone, call AAA, get it taken care of? Or do you take the thing that you said you were going to do, even though you have that easy out that you can call something or somebody? Or do you say, the answer to every problem lies behind the next door? Do you take that route? And that's where some of the best stories come from is through doing what you said you were going to do, and things just have a way of working out if you stick to the principles that you committed to.
You're so wise, Brandon. You must have been the Iowa cult leader at one point.
I did. I'm still brainwashed into saying the politically correct thing. But I did do it. I did it.
Of all people, you're working with Matt Atchison, and
I've got no incentive to still talk this way. It's just so ingrained in me that it's like and it's probably boring now for people like, oh my God, why is he still talking like this? This is boring. Does he still get paid for kids that come out? But
we talked about the other day, so obviously Brandon's brother, Chris, sold as well. So it's so fun when we, you know, get together at like family stuff and we still have these stories. But like we talk about it to this day, like Brandon nor I ever got off schedule. And neither of us are just saying that to say like we never got off schedule. Truly, neither of us. The first that I knew that people got off schedule was my third summer when I was recruiting, but I didn't know it right until like the end of the nights. Like I never knew that people went to the movies or to the lake or went home. Like
First years that are on, start taking notes. Fun things to do when you don't want to sell anymore.
Oh, this is uncensored.
No
This is uncensored. Keep talking.
Oh yeah.
Like,
I'm not saying not to. I'm just like, you know, like have your pen and paper handy.
I didn't know, and I took that into Tom James. Like, I'm not kidding you. My first year at Tom James, I attribute one of the biggest reasons why I was like a top first year at Tom James and did so well is because I followed the do not get off schedule. Even in my career, like if I had to get gas in the middle of the day at Tom James, I was like, oh my God, like my leader's going to drive by and he's going to freak out on me. Like it was so ingrained into me that
Yeah, I remember you had a lot of anxiety problems from working with Tom James because of the schedule and the beat yourself to work to death, right?
my anxiety I attribute largely to Southwestern.
the schedule.
Let's dig into that.
Not in a bad way, I guess, kind of. Like it's good to be a person who's consistent and, you know, on schedule and follows what they're supposed to do. But I do think back on that and I'm like, I've never in my life had anxiety until I sold books, and I never had like health issues until I sold books. So it kind of,
That's
I'm not
okay.
saying that's what caused it, but
Well, that's what you get from redlining so much all the time, right? That's what that is.
And the hot dogs and cheese and peanut butter diet that you have probably doesn't help either.
It could also be that, you know, like for me, I had never, so the reason I sold books is because I don't know, school was easy and I did sports and those were easy. Like it was the first, and my parents, long story, but we moved here, my parents kind of brought up all these challenges that my brother and I had to go through without us choosing. And for me, this was the first time that I could be like, oh, I can choose to go put myself through something hard, actually hard, and then see if I can do it on my own. Like it was the first time I had a chance to kind of prove myself. So maybe that's what it has to do with, because I mean, really, like an 18-year-old kid growing up in the Midwest doesn't really like face a lot of adversity in their life until you go sell books. And you're like, oh shit, this is insane. So I don't know. Maybe
Like the book experience is the same for not even the book, the door-to-door sales experience, I think is probably the same, that it's like things don't change. I was watching this last night, and this is, you know, with our Portlandia experience, you know, loving that. And then Documentary Now. Are you guys familiar?
No.
We watched that episode together. Yeah.
That is like the funniest thing. So on Documentary Now, they do, I don't remember which season it is, but they do a spoof or a parody of the 1968 documentary Salesman. And so it's got Bill Hader and Fred Armisen, and it's called The Globesman is their spoof for it. And it's like the funniest, most accurate thing of just like all the awkward moments, connections, and, you know, like it's like so painfully accurate. And I was watching this last night and I fell asleep halfway through, but I finally pulled up that actual 1968 documentary. It's called Salesman, and I would recommend anybody that has not seen it to watch both the Documentary Now and as well as the actual documentary that it's based off of, Salesman. And on the 1968 one, they were Bible salesmen, and it's just like I don't know yet if that is like real footage of these guys selling these Bibles, or if it is like, you know, taking experiences of Bible salesmen and then like creating these stories. Because obviously you've got like a cameraman in there while they're in sales situations, but it's just so accurate, like the things that you experience. But it's also hilarious when you've got like, you know, the guy sitting there at someone's table and they're like smoking a cigarette and wearing, wearing the Mormon outfit or the Jehovah's Witness outfit of like the tie and like the white shirt, short sleeve, button up. It's so accurate and it's like so funny. And that's the thing that is like, we all experience that same thing. And, that's where it's like one of my favorite sayings that this is where it, turns positive, but this is uncensored. So whatever, fuck that as well. But it is, there's no doubt about it. It's like life is 90%, 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react. But it's like everybody has similar experiences and we've all got these different stories that we share that, we can all relate in one way or another. And some of them are a little more crazy than others, but like we all go through, it's like you're tested in ways that it's like, how do you react to the situations that you're dealt with? And that's one of the most, like one of the most positive things overall in looking back is like, I'm glad, and I'm sure you guys are the same way. That's like, I'm glad I like dealt with that adversity because it, it helped us grow up.
Yeah.
And that's where we get into like early champions. And I'm sure you guys are probably like what you were talking about dark things with Shane. You guys talk about like early champions or with like Jeffrey and stuff. And you can get into
like getting off schedule and, like actually finding yourself so exhausted that you can't handle it anymore. And you're just like, I need a break, but you guys didn't have that problem, but you've dealt with plenty of quitters, it sounds like.
Wait, what's dirty champions? I've never heard this term.
Early champions.
Or early champions. Oh,
early champions.
He said dirty, and I was like, the fuck?
That's a whole nother concept of champions that it's like, that's where it's like, we talk about like, the whatever, like I remember that it was, what was it? Dr. Ralph Brigham was, he was doing a part. And then I think that he talked about like the different like types of champions. And then we throw in like, make sure you got the early champions or you got your different schedule as your lifeline, all of your different schedules, make sure you got your bathroom schedule in there. And it's the early champions. And I always like saying that it's like, everybody is going to run a successful business this summer. Just some of us have the opportunity to run nonprofit organizations.
That's right. That should be in the info.
That's what I probably need to share this video. It's not complete, but when I hosted the Freddy's, another one of my proudest accomplishments was having the opportunity to host the Freddy's. But I got a lot of like flexibility and autonomy to be able to kind of create my own bits that we ran, which was such a good experience. But one that did not get the green light was I had this video that was like an in memoriam to early champions. And it's a slideshow. I need to post it. I think I've still got it on a computer. It's so funny because it was so like the song that played was We Are the Champions by Queen. And I had it dubbed over. It was like, we are the, and I threw in like my voice saying early every time before they said champions. And it's like, and we'll keep on fighting till the end. And then it had me jump in to say of week 2. And it had like all that, like it would like show a picture and it would say their name and then have like their stats, but it wouldn't be like full summer stats of like so many units or so many hours or whatever it was. It was like 12 sit downs for cheesy Chad Orman and it was like 2 customers total, 2 undelivered customers. Like it would have been freaking hilarious, but they did not green light that bit. And so I've got that video that I probably need to expose to the world because I was pretty proud of it. Back 6 years ago.
You should for sure post it.
Yeah.
I have a question for you. Do you remember, I have a recollection of this, but do you remember your biggest rejection? Like the biggest, like the kind of rejection that you're just like, you're not even mad. You're just like, wow, that was amazing.
I don't know, got this big build up for it, but it had to have been pretty much like all the rejections I faced that 7th summer. That was definitely the character building summer that I ever had.
Texas.
Because it was truly, like I said, crawling through the finish line. Like I'm proud of the fact that I did finish and didn't give up, but it was like 7th summer. You weren't going to give up you're not going to quit as an OL. So that was really never on the table. But like what I was dealing with that summer, and I do not want this to be construed as, oh, he made an excuse, but it was definitely a character building, and the fact that there was like a legitimate cult that you can look up, and I can't remember the town name that I was in right now, but I could tell you exactly what the cult was. So people were just pretty leery in the first place, but then I was also selling over Family Heritage had this big they rented out for like the summer this like ranch thing where they had like 10 people in there. And I know
Is
this
that
for a
where
fact
Isaiah was?
because Isaiah Garza, I ran into him on the book field. I think it was day one. It was me working with a first year and him working with a first year as well. And we literally ran into each other in the same territory. And I was like, "What's up, man?" I was like, "Hey," and it was like nothing more than that. It's not like we like hung out or anything, but like ran into someone who had previously sold books and had a first year with him. I had a first year with him. We probably would have stayed and talked more if we were like both alone. But it was like, all right, well, good to see you, man. And like, I got to go to work because it was very early in the summer. But I dealt with that all summer, and I know that Megan Mazzoni was there as well in that like Family Heritage HQ, and so it was like 10 or 12 people is my understanding. And so there was no way I could get away from like working over the same turf as them. And I had some really pretty bad rejections because like it's my understanding that the area that I was in, there was another first year Family Heritage that was working over, and he was like a high school student, so it was not good at all, and people just hated him. And that was probably like the one time where it was not uncommon on a daily basis for me to see guns and have people that were literally pretty rude the second they even saw me. And it's just like, I just got to keep working through it. But that was probably the most negative that I was. Like, I'm proud of the fact that I didn't stop going forward, but I definitely had a kind of a change in mentality where it's like by the end it was really kind of get through this, and I'll look back on it, and it's a part of my story. But it was pretty rough. That was some tough sailing. And just a negative overall org. I mean, we were down in the Houston area, and that's what Amanda talks about, almost losing her car that year. And we dealt with like the first 2 weeks. There was such bad flooding in Houston.
My car literally flooded down the street.
And
like I came out and got in my car, and the water was up to like past my ankles, and the other cars were floating down the street.
It was just like every day, like the first 2 weeks was like hardcore. You'd have to deal with like flooding all day, every day for like those first 2 weeks. And as managers, it's like, it sucks, and you hate getting your books wet and not having people like want to let you in. But as managers, you can handle it and you can get through it. But as first years, that's where it's like, I do feel like, there is an element of if they can get a little bit of momentum and a little bit of confidence in the first week and some customers, and this is all right, then they can build from there and handle that stuff. But when you immediately throw some of the worst adversity that they can deal with, I mean, I had a 15-person team that year, and I think I finished with four first years. So it was pretty brutal of a pretty negative organization from the beginning, where it's like every Sunday meeting, it's like, you're noticing. I remember I had one first year that, and Dakota loves telling this story too, because he was following Dakota, and I don't remember, it was like week 4, week 5, something like that. And just in the middle of following, he tells Dakota like, yeah, I'm leaving. Like I've made my decision. And he was like super positive about it. And it was like his justification for why he like still felt like he got out of the summer what he was set out to accomplish was the fact that he lasted longer than this other kid that we had high hopes for, like the superstar that you put through the old ring of fire, the gauntlet, that it's like, this is the kid that like we think's going to do well. And he's like, I made it longer than he did. And so he was excited about it. And it's just like, it's hard to, when the floodgates open, literally and metaphorically in this instance, that, you get some first years that quit. And it's like, all right, well, they quit. It's again, like what I talked about that first story of, I was like a sheep mentality and following in a positive way. These other people saying they wanted to interview, it's kind of it works against you as well, that when you get some people quitting, then the other ones are like, well, I saw them do it, and I'm sure they're back at home having fun. Then it definitely snowballed there as well. So I would say that I don't have any specific instances of this was the worst rejection, but there were definitely some legitimate threats that I didn't actually think that someone was going to punch me, but there were a couple times where it was like, all right, like I need to like try and like diffuse the situation and like get out of there, because people were like making some serious threats in that area. So good old Texas.
That's cool.
Bang 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 bang.
But even with that being said, we have talked so much about like someday when we have kids, will our kids, if Southwestern is still around, which
It
Danny,
seems like it will. They had their
and the
best year
Force
in a
is
while during a pandemic. So
Danny and Aisha and the Force are killing it, and I'm so proud of all of those guys for all of that, and I'm glad they're keeping it around. But if it's still around by the time we have kids that age, we've talked about like whether we will make our kids sell or this or that. And it's a funny story. So my brother and his wife both work for Fusion Medical Staffing, and one of their it was like their president or something, he sold books as well. He was a Tom James client and he sold books. And my brother and his wife have met in Omaha, even like just through the grapevine, a ton of people that have sold books, not anybody even that we're connected to, but like other people. And they've said, my brother's wife was like, every book person that we've met is super successful, and we're going to make our kids sell books. Now, obviously, I don't know if that's.
I mean, you put your face to the grindstone for like 80 hours a week for just like 3 months at least, if not 3 months for multiple years. You know, like if people sell books, they're going to, if they take the right things away from it, they're going to be able to apply the right things from it to then be successful. I'm literally, transforming my whole recruiting operation at this life insurance agency I'm at, because I know how to have a day 1, day 2, day 3 interview, and I actually dangle the carrot in such a way where it is selective. We're not just handing jobs away, and actually training them so that they can then be proficient with sales principles on the phone, because it's a call center where people don't really know about persistence and having a good attitude and working a schedule. It's like, this is so basic, but yeah, I think it.
Like you can teach, we've talked about this, some of the principles that we're going to teach our kids, like positive self-talk, writing your goals down every day, putting your goals on your mirror, like some of the things that we do to this day. But even then, I think you can't fully understand, like you can do all those things when you're sitting in a nice cushy home or office and whatever, but I don't think you can fully ever grasp all of that until you put yourself in a situation where you can't just call your parents to fix it or just
you
go
have to
home.
go knocking for your host family, right?
Yes, exactly. So, I mean, we want to teach, hopefully, God willing, we have kids someday. We want to teach them all those principles, but I still think there's an element of you can't fully teach them those things. Like they have to go out and door knock and experience it.
That's right. I think that's true. The way I don't know who explained, some person they were recruiting, they explained it this way. And to me, this is why I think when I have kids, if Danny and Aisha still are doing Southwestern or whoever, I would find whoever's doing it on that campus, because like it makes it so they're not entitled. Southwestern's the best thing about Southwestern, and also maybe one of the worst things about Southwestern, is that however you do, you earn that. Like nobody can take that away from you, right? If you sold 10,000 units or you sold 700 units, that you did that. You know what I'm saying? It's on you, good and bad. And so like it's a great opportunity. The analogy someone made was like throwing a kid into like a wave pool, and life is like the ocean. It's not like, it's like the way the most easy way to make people understand and experience all different things of life in like a quick, canned, safe way. And for that reason, I'd say, dude, go ask your uncle if he's still around. Go ask your uncle to freaking recruit you. He's gotta get you to go sell books. Go do it. I think everybody should do it, but that's all.
Yeah, well, that's what, it's funny when you get together with like Yvette or the Greeters or the Atchisons, they all say, like, Yvette will say, hey, Ari, are you going to sell more books than Sam and Ben Atchison or than, the Greeters? Like, it's already, because their kids are all kind of the same age, it's already a competition between the Greeters, Yvette, and then the Atchisons of who of their kids are going to sell more books.
It's a good way to measure who is the best parent.
Yeah, which
the Morehouse.
That'd be weird. That'd be crazy.
Yeah.
But they will all sell at the same time. I mean, they're all within that same age range.
All right. Yeah, I think they're gonna like tune into this. Are we gonna place bets right now on?
I was gonna say we should
Yeah,
bet.
Horses
like
children.
20 years
I
later, 19 years later, not even like it's
You got to pick
Ari-
your Tony right now, man.
I think either Ari or Ben. I think either Ari or Ben Atchison will sell the most books.
I think it's your best kid.
yeah, Ari.
But you have to think about like how tight of a ship that like Matt runs. I mean, I know you guys probably don't spend like a lot of time with them, but
Yeah, but Matt
Brandon could
Matt-
attest to this. I
Matt
would
learned
say.
from Yvette. Like they all learned it from Yvette. We all did. Like she did all of it.
She's the
Everything
reason.
that we
She's the reason
did.
that Grant was successful.
Grant was Yvette's superior.
Yeah,
and-
but
Yeah, and Grant was
No
successful
offense, Grant.
because
Love you,
Yvette
Grant.
was there.
Dude, can you imagine living with Yvette as your coach for your life in the way that she cares about you more than anything else in the world? It's like
She's the most organized and like by the book person.
Ari's gonna be doing bookman things without even knowing that he's doing bookman things. Like
Yeah.
when he gets,
but I
sales
think
school-
Atchison kids will too because Matt,
Yeah.
that's how
So-
Matt runs his life too.
So here's the thing about the difference between Yvette and Matt is Yvette is like she works every little detail into sales excellence and life excellence. Matt's just like, I'm just here and everybody loves me. Like
So that gets into an interesting question that I would bring up is obviously Southwestern and any sales company is going to have this same line or the same mentality when they're talking to people is it's not about your personality, it's not about your looks, it's
your work
purely
ethic.
about your work. What do you guys think about that now that we're out of it?
Now
I
that we
think
don't have to
mo-
preach it.
Your most important factor, I think, is work ethic. But it's like if you've got two people with similar work ethics and one is, you know, a model or very charismatic, how much of an impact do you guys think that makes?
So I think about Philippe, some last name. I don't remember this kid. I don't remember anything more than his name was Philippe, and he was dating my student manager, and we were on the same team. He went to KU, I went to Creighton. So he was a Jayhawk, I was a Blue Jay, and his first couple weeks, he was selling like 400, 500. He was almost hitting PC as a first year within his first 3 to 4 weeks. But like I was selling shit. I didn't sell anything my first like 2 or 3 weeks. I had like 3 or 4 weak customers. And so the thing is, he actually wound up quitting like week 4 or 5. And I, actually stuck it out through the whole summer. Now, in the lens of Southwestern, I was more successful. I don't know what that guy's up to, but he's probably effortlessly finding success because that guy was movie star looks. He was a soccer player and just like had the hair, like studied abroad in Europe and things like that. So he was just like cool and sexy. I don't know. I've had to actually scrap and find success. He just stumbled into it, So it's kind of interesting to see how that works. It's just a matter of, are you going to be like DJ Khaled and suffer from success like Philippe did? Or are you going to like just put your head down and go to work and stick around and, I don't know, find yourself in some weird position in life like I did?
So you're saying, Nick, you think attractiveness wins over hard work?
No, I mean, there's got to be a baseline of like, you got to at least finish, right? And that's something Philippe didn't do. Is that going to hurt him or serve him? Really, it depends, because I think that people don't like to finish things they don't like to do. I had enough for Southwestern. Like I liked the product. I liked the skills that I was developing, the people I was working with enough to look past the rejection, to look past the having to actually drive door to door and keep track of my maps, right? Philippe didn't really have enough to push through that. So if he likes something else way more, he's probably like really successful at it. And I'm probably never going to touch his level of success, at least not in that area. I might in my own area, but I also might not. you know? So
Also, you are charismatic and an attractive person.
thank
Yeah,
you.
baby.
This is
Right.
uncensored. We
So-
shouldn't be talking too positively to each other like this.
Well, no,
Right, just tell
no,
them.
but so
It's too much. It's too much.
I do think that there's an element of more times than not, people who are successful are also charismatic, attractive, hardworking, blah, blah, blah. Wouldn't you agree with that? So I think that's hard to say whether hard work or being attractive, which one is better, because typically a lot of that goes hand in.
If you work hard enough,
Well-
you can become more charismatic. That's something I've learned.
I don't know if I agree with that.
Okay.
Let me ask you, Brandon, if this is what you're asking me. You take two people who have very similar work ethics, and then what then is going to set them apart? Let's say they're both working really hard, busting into each store for 85 hours exactly each. Who's going to sell more? I don't think it has to do as much with attractiveness as it has to do with like intelligence. I think the smarter person will win. And not even like maybe logical intelligence, but like there are people who are extremely good at like reading situations compared to
I
people.
found that intelligence is more of a hindrance. That's just
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
It's a different. This is where you're getting into the EQ, and you're talking
Yeah,
about the
I'm talking about EQ.
emotional,
I'm talking about like because here's
reading,
the thing. I can tell you-
self-awareness, reading situations.
so then
Right.
emotional
So
intelligence.
let me
That's
tell you
different
this.
from just book smarts.
Hold on. Yes. Let me finish. I'm thinking about like my first summer, my best week ever, right? I'm thinking about that week.
Nick, you're not displaying good EQ right now.
I don't care. Andres pisses
So-
me off.
So
No.
So my first summer, I'm trying to think of like my best week. Like, what did I do? I'm telling you right now, honest to God, hand to God, swear it to whoever, I could not have done any more effort-wise that week. I couldn't. So how come, if that's true, then how come I didn't sell 1,000 units instead of whatever I did, right? And I think it comes down to part of it is the repetitions. Like that's why people who have been around longer tend to sell longer. But there's some way of figuring it out where like you learn really, really well what's going to be a yes and what's going to be a no really quick. You're able to read situations way better than someone else. You're able to like be like just like awareness. I think the ability to be aware and to systematically making it so you go through your gravy more effectively, like all these things that like it comes natural to people who are more intelligent. And I'm not saying that if you don't sell a lot of books you're dumb, because again, remember, this is based on the premise that like both people are working equally hard, right? So like if the best ability is availability. If you're not showing up to go work, you're not going to sell any books. I'm talking about like you have two people who are like equally working hard.
Same
I think
effort,
the smarter one is going to win.
different and intelligence you think is going to make
Yeah,
the difference.
and the reason the case I'm going to make for this is I'm actually talking about my brother here, because my brother, one of the things he did, he hit like PC like 27 times in a row. That's crazy to think that you get there to a new territory first week of any summer and you just go ahead and PC and nothing below that. Like that's insane. So how does that happen? I think and if you know Danny, this is true. Like he just got really good at being able to be like, I know exactly what I need to do or say in every situation, anytime, anywhere. And because of that, it makes me more effective at like doing my craft, which is in this case selling books.
Yeah, but Danny is also better looking than every other man on earth. So
That's probably fair, but at the same time,
I don't think so.
at the same time, there's like people who are very good looking who do not sell a lot of books and they were working hard. Right? If you look at like
no, let's not.
if you look at any, just open up any superstar book and go through it. They're not all beautiful.
Not at all. It's kind of interesting.
I'm on one of them.
Guys look in different directions. Shout out Joel Cush and some other people who like he plays along with it. We got short Steve Thyden, right? He's actually listening on right now. He commented on
You put the
Facebook.
picture of Steve on there. You ain't looking at his height, and he's
I know. But like,
strong jaw.
Yeah.
Steve's a good looking
oh
dude.
yeah.
But
So
he's
anyway.
short, and I don't think that helps him.
Right. I mean, nothing's really a problem unless you make it a problem in your own mind, right? Something like that.
That's a good point. Just a side point. People always ask me if at 6'8", if that like hurt me. I think it helped me. If anything, people were intrigued by my
decide.
height. They would be like, "How tall are you?" Like, get in here. I got to learn about you, tall, drink of water. Like it, I embraced it. I think it helped me.
I think you were like anybody past like 6'4" or 6'5", it was like you were to the point of awkward tall to where people were intrigued by that.
I talked to a prospect this week that I called her and I was checking in on her. It's been a year since she and I had talked, and it had been 2 years since I did a meeting with her. And I was like, do you remember me? I'm Brandon Q from Southwestern Investment Group. And she was like, I cannot remember. I was like, I'm that really tall advisor. She's like, you know what? Now that you mention it, I remember that really tall guy. And it's like that, like I embrace it, and I think it helped me. It
Well,
makes me
I've got a friend, Bryce, who's currently, he sold books this summer, and he has like he's a ginger with a bold mustache with curls and everything. And so he's just like, hey, I'm Bryce with and he just like, do you like the mustache? He literally
that guy
asked.
that looked like he worked at a carnival. Yeah.
Yeah, so he brings
Distinguishing
attention.
features work in your favor.
It's a pattern break, you know?
If you embrace it, I think that just whatever distinguishes you, you got to really lean into it.
Weird.
Well,
Anyway,
maybe with like Southwestern, it's not about attractiveness as much as hard work, but like speaking from obviously working at Tom James for a long time, that business was largely about
yeah.
the looks.
And in that case, yeah, the better you look, because you got to look. But then again, everybody has like a way to look good, a glow up. Like there's some people that are just like, oh, right. And I don't mean to be mean. There are ugly people in the world, and some people are some of them, right? But like
most of them, most people are not good looking.
Yeah, but in general, like if you give a person like a nice haircut, maybe give them a good shower, and put them in a really nice Tom James, it's like, okay, you're not bad. But in that line of work, I think you're right, Amanda. I think it definitely helps that you were attractive, right now, because you're selling looks, you're selling attractiveness, right?
So I think it just depends
The
on
nonverbals
as well, because we were selling mostly to men. This sounds bad, but it's true. Anybody who sells for Tom James would say this. You want an attractive female in front of that man. But they also have to be hardworking, driven. I mean, all those things as well. You can't just do well at Tom James by being attractive. You have to have
It's a perfect mix. It's you got to have the basics, and then what extra features on top of that, right?
I don't think that good looks, it doesn't hurt you. It's not the key.
Never gonna hurt you.
But it helps if someone's borderline and they're like, I'm not really interested, but I'll sit and look at this person for 20 minutes. Sure, let's do it. And I'm like not even listening to you, and sometimes it'll be like, you know what? Oh, you said that you'll deliver the books. You're gonna come back. All right, fine. I'll buy it. I'll pay $300-400.
Yeah.
What's the cheapest package you got? Okay, I'll buy it. You're gonna deliver them personally. It's gonna be you. Like I don't think it hurts you.
Package? No way.
So, like I think that helps you, but it's not the determining factor. And you're not going to talk to first years about that because it isn't the most important thing. But I think that plays a role. But ultimately, I think what Andres was talking about, I do think that is the most important, not the most. So you have to have a foundation. That's where we talk about the kind of triangle of success or the pyramid of success or however you want to look at it. It's like hard work is the part that you can control. It's a controllable factor, and it's the most important thing. But when you compare two people with similar work ethics, I think that, being able to have the emotional intelligence, being able to read a situation, be able to say the right thing, because that's what I did stick to the sales talk every summer. I helped write the sales talk multiple summers, and that's your foundation. But the reason that we study it ad nauseum week after week leading up to the summer, and we'll wake up at go to the 6 a.m. union to practice it, is so that you can have that ingrained in your in your thought process, so that way when you need to deviate from it to be able to have a real conversation, when it's time to come back to it and get right back on script, you can do so and say the close word for word and go through all these steps that we know from personal experience, from things like, when they're closing an info session and they're saying it word for word, and I'm a sheep and I'm following people. We all follow the sheep mentality, just as regular, human beings. We follow that. But being able to deviate from that when necessary to make a real personal connection, I think that's really important. Here's one of the things I had read this article. This was 5 or 6 years ago. But if you have a normal conversation with me, you may come out with this impression of me that I'm not super outgoing, or you see me do stand-up comedy, and then generally you probably will think that I'm super outgoing because I'm can stand in front of a crowd for an hour and just talk and make them laugh. And there's just different environments that you catch me in where you'll have different opinions of me. And that's where it's like one of the things that I saw that I read in this article that I remember, and I can't remember any of the actual statistics, but I just do remember this in talking about, who succeeds in sales professions. And they talked about, does it help you to be the most outgoing person, the kind of always want to be in the spotlight person, or does it, is it best to be the person who's like the super introvert? And what they actually found was that if you ranked people in their introvert or extrovert personality from 1 to 10, who's the most successful in sales careers, and it was right in the middle was actually the most successful, because generally those people can kind of match what they need to do. And that's where we get into like the Lee McCroskey, the Dustin Hill stuff of selling like a chameleon, that it was like, if you have a conversation with me just in passing or small talk, it's like, I'm not a big fan of small talk if there's nothing to gain. And it's like, I don't just generally naturally want to like dive into all this stuff and like get into everybody's story in every situation. If the situation's right and I'm feeling it, then I can really like pry into situations or just be more reserved. And I think that had like a big influence outside of, again, I go back to the, those individuals like Grayson and Nick Henderson and Gamble, that had such an impact in setting me on the right path. But when you really kind of get to that next level, and you don't generally hit this in your first summer, second summer, it's kind of the third, fourth summers when you really start to get into kind of the really understanding the sales process and being able to legitimately sell as opposed to finding buyers. When you're kind of in that middle where it's like, when necessary, you can you quickly identify that this is an outgoing person, you match that outgoingness, or like this is an analytical person that is not outgoing, and then you kind of tone it back. I think that makes such a big difference. And Nick, I will shut up then. Sorry.
No.
Some of us know how to sell. Not everybody knows how to sell.
Something that I do want to say is, I would say that Brandon, between the two of us, oddly enough, I'm a lot better at sales, but he is an insanely hard worker. Like I truthfully have never met somebody in my life that works as hard as him to hit his goals and to provide for his family and, whatever. He, and Nick can attest to this. He lived with us. This guy gets up 5 a.m. every day, does his workout. He's so regimented, but he's such an insanely hard worker. And so I wouldn't say maybe you would say you're not maybe as outgoing and maybe not as good as at sales, quote unquote, but you're just an insanely hard worker. Whereas I work hard, but I definitely don't work nearly as hard as him. It's just that I'm better at, I think, talking to people and more outgoing. Wouldn't you say that?
More naturally, yeah.
Yeah. So,
but when that's where it's like, if that's what's needed of me, and I like either in the moment or going into the moment know that it's like, I got to be outgoing and have to dominate this scenario, then I can do so. Like I can muster whatever's needed, but it's all about kind of your instincts of like, my instincts are not naturally to be the center of attention. But again, that's where it's like with stand-up comedy, it's like you put a microphone in my hand and it's like, all right, we know it's built into the situation that it's like you're standing on a stage with a spotlight on you and a microphone. It's like, it's time to like nut up or shut up. I can rise to the occasion. but you meet me, and that's where like so many, this is totally deviating from books, but it's like, you talk about like the Will Ferrells, and like, they say that Will Ferrell is always in character because like just the actual Will Ferrell is, kind of a quiet person, and that's why he goes into characters even when he was on late night shows, is because when you put him in the situation where it's like, you're on, man, like the camera's on, then he rises to the occasion. I think that describes me as well, that it's like I'm not if you're just talking to me and I'm sitting on, we're sharing a cab or something, then it's like I'll just just be quiet and don't have any reason to engage. But if I feel like, all right, for whatever reason the stars have aligned, then I can get in that situation that I can do what I need to do when called upon. And that's what I was getting at as well when it comes to like the book field, is like that's one of the things I loved about the book field every single year, that it's like I wasn't in as many jobs and careers where it's like calling on your friends and family. There's nothing wrong with that, but I love the situation where it's like I'm going to a school district, I know nobody, and so as uncomfortable and as awkward as I may feel, when I get done with this summer, I'm going to go back to school, and everything that I experienced is going to be in the past. It's like, it's okay. It's fine. Whatever happens.
And that's part of like emotional intelligence, right? Like that's what exactly what I'm talking about. You were talking about, once you kind of build a pyramid and you kind of got those foundations in your third or fourth summer, you go into like this next level. Like, I think the reason for that is because, and I think this is the only thing that really helped me do well in Southwestern, was that like I understood, and because I got selected so late, I didn't get a chance to like learn the sales talk. And the way that I memorized it was I asked myself, why am I saying this? And so then when I was going through the sales talk, I understood why this paragraph made sense to say here, and not just this is the part where you're supposed to talk about how people spend $300 on baseball bats, and it's or whatever, right? Or whatever the second need, or the cover the husband objection. I knew why I was saying the words, and so even though sometimes I'd forget it or whatever, I knew the message that I was trying to say, and that's what helped me do well, because people still understood the message that I was trying to say. And I think that's what you were talking about when you get into your third and fourth summer, is that and I think that's what Danny does really well, is he just knows what the point he's trying to make and is aware that, okay, I've made that point, I can move on. That's going to save me some time, get a yes quicker, get a no quicker. Because two people that are working the same are going to work 85 hours, and so they have the same amount of time. So what makes one better? You get more sales. Well, you get to the next person faster. Well, how do you do that? Well, you just get better at realizing when they're going to say no. You get better at realizing when they're going to say yes. You get better at navigating your turf. You get better at using your names, and you get better and get the fuck out of there quick. And what allows you to do that is you're aware, your emotional awareness of like, they're going to buy. And you don't have to be, in fact, people who are in like IQ smart like that those people actually tend to struggle sometimes, because they think that it has to be like this method systematically done. And it doesn't work that way. It's life, it's people. And so when you go out and try to sell, they're trying to find the numbers and the statistics and all these things, and they have no fucking idea
Not really that IQ
how to make it better.
just compared to you.
Whoa, what?
As you're describing the IQ smart, what I would say is like the Sheldon Coopers. Amanda says that's me. I don't think that's me.
But he does over analyze situations, and I do think that when you talked about that was probably you at the beginning of like over analyzing
my first summer. Yeah, my first summer.
Right. So that's the point that I'm making.
But the reason I was able to progress is because exactly what you were saying is like those people don't hit the next level, but I was emotionally able to read the situation.
And that's why, and further proof of this is why it's always such a pleasant conversation with a person that sold a lot of books, or like a person that had a good enough summer, right? Like that, if you have ever talked to any of those people, it doesn't have to be a 10,000 new producer, but people that did well, it's so much more pleasant of a conversation. That's why these podcasts are working so well, because all these people were kick ass, and it works really well. I have a question for you, interesting question for you. I always had, this is my theory, and you can dispute this if you want, or I'd be curious to see what you thought. I always thought that there's certain levels of in Southwestern that if you hit these levels, it could have been a fluke. And then there's certain levels that's like you don't accidentally hit those numbers. And my numbers were 4s, so you don't accidentally sell 400 units in a week. Like if you're selling 400 or above, you something you figured out. There's something you figured out. Or if you're selling 4,000 units a summer or more, you don't accidentally you meant to, because you can accidentally have like a steak day, right? And then the other days are
Most
shit.
of the time.
You
Most of
know,
the time.
you know what I'm saying? But if you're hitting 400 units or more a week, there's something that you've got figured out. And I've always theorized that like the gap between 400 to 600 to 800 to 1,000 was just such a small thing that, because most people that I asked that hit more regularly, who also hit PC, I'm like, what was the difference? And most of them just go, I don't know. I just knew I was going to do it. But there's nothing real technical there. It's just like a mental thing. What do you think of that?
The first, in my view, the first threshold that you hit on a weekly basis is PC. That's where it's like, well, that's what they talk about. That's what's built up. And when they've got these T-shirts of the 200 unit club and the 300 unit club and the 400 unit club, who gives a shit? They're all the same. When you hit like the actual first threshold of any sort of accomplishment is President's Club at 600 or whatever they ultimately change it to as things progress. But 600 units, that was always in my mind of like, you're doing your job. When you're 600, and I don't necessarily expect first years, because that's what a good first year hits it 2 times and wins President's Club. But as a first year student, I don't know, maybe 400 is maybe the number, that if you can hit 400 a few times, then you're probably working hard. But the way I always looked at it as a first year student, or any student, if you've got no emotional intelligence and you're just going out there and busting your ass, it's 4,000 or 5,000 units. And then what I always considered top producer territory is 8,000. If you're able to do 8,000, especially if you do it a couple times, it's like, that's where, that's what they did with President's Club, is you got to hit it twice. Once can be a fluke. And so one summer can be a fluke. But if you have 2 summers, in my mind, if you have 2 summers over 8,000 units, then you are a top producer. And then 10,000 is like an MVP or a Pro Bowl, an all-star caliber year, but to be considered for the Hall of Fame, or it's like in the NFL, obviously we're in the heat of the NFL season, that it's like, if you can win 1 MVP, anybody can have a good summer. You look at it, Aaron Rodgers got 2 MVPs, love Aaron Rodgers. Patrick Mahomes has 1 MVP and is on track to probably get a lot of MVPs. But if you can do it more than once, then that proves that it's not a fluke in any sort of capacity. And so my numbers always, as far as the summer, was, if you are working hard, then it's like 4,000 or 5,000. If you got nothing more than just you go out and bust your ass, you sell 4,000 units. And if you're a top producer, then, it's got to be 8,000 units a couple times. Those were some of my kind of personal thresholds that are just in my mind for whatever. And they're arbitrary numbers that the company has set. So, anybody else can have a different opinion, and I'm not saying that I'm right and they're wrong, but just in my mind, that was the way I viewed things.
That's pretty solid. That's good. That's a good answer. That's interesting to think about, like, because there's people like just the idea of being able to do something like that on purpose and just being in the zone, and how different that feels like. It's because I mean, I remember feelings of like when things were really jamming, there was like this different like level of focus, or like, I don't know, zone that you would get into. Man, that shit was fun. It was a lot of fun. Oh, Steve Thyden joined back up. Hello, Steve.
Stevie, get in, buddy.
Steve's watching live. We're gonna have to get him on the show next. Steve, if you're watching and you want to be on the podcast,
we've been booked out for like a couple weeks, so not next. He'll have to be here at this point. We're really getting a lot of interest.
I'm loving what we got going on. I'm gonna pee and be right back, but I'm loving this.
Yeah, we're gonna talk to Amanda for a second, real quick, because we did ask Brandon. We didn't ask you if you wanted to share. We asked Brandon what he's up to now, what his life after Southwestern is, and what he's up to now, where he works, and how he uses his principles from Southwestern to help him out. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what you do now, with how Southwestern helped you with your current thing, and kind of maybe, tell us a little bit about what you're doing.
Well, Peeps, what? Who wants to say hi? Georgie's sitting down here, but she's not. Whoever that was that wanted the corgis, here they are.
Yeah.
I think everybody.
What's that, Nick?
That was Sydney Ann Dove. She'll be one of our next participants. I think we're getting her squared up for Thursday. So
All right. Well, tell her she's missing the corgis.
she'll see the recording. Oh yeah.
You know, to be totally honest with you, I think that, and I said this earlier, Southwestern created kind of that mindset for me of, hey, it's all a numbers game. It's all a, you know, how many people do you reach out to? And it's just a working the hours. And I attribute, and I said this in my President's Club speech, my first year at Tom James, I attribute so much of my success of, you know, fortunately being able to make six figures my very first year at Tom James to my selling books. Like I can't even imagine what it would have looked like without selling books. I mean, truly. But so for me, I think that when I worked for Tom James, that was the biggest thing for me, was that I did go out and like I said, I felt bad even in Tom James in my career. I felt bad getting gas in the middle of the day. Like I was out of my house first thing in the morning. I had wrote down my goals every single morning. I did the exact same thing. Like when you sell books, you know, you go to your breakfast spot, you order the same thing, you read the scrolls, all those things. I followed that strictly when I sold for Tom James as well. Every morning I would write down my goals first thing, my grateful list. On my mirror at our house, I would have my goals. Like it was basically like I was living the selling book lifestyle, and I transferred it to selling Tom James. And then I would actually go to random offices every day and just pop into their office and introduce myself. So it was basically door to door, but business to business for me. Like when somebody didn't, you know, somebody canceled their appointment, this or that, like I went straight to an office and I started going into the offices and introducing myself to people. So I attribute so much of that to Southwestern. And then now with Isagenix, it's, you know, sadly I left Tom James for, you know, some different reasons that we don't have to get into, but I now even with Isagenix, it's the exact same thing. It's all a numbers game, and my team I have coached the exact same way is, you know, get your 50 reach outs a week and embrace the no's like Brandon does he always does that, embracing the no's. But embrace those no's, and you know, it's just it's crazy to me that selling books has created these goals and this lifestyle that, you know, so many other people, we talked about this last night while we were smoking a cigar, was our goals for our lives are so much more than a lot of people would ever set for themselves. And we attribute Southwestern to that. I mean, so much of that mindset. And like at our wedding, it was, you know, my mom has said this multiple times, how amazing it was to have all those book people there. Yeah. But it's just like, it's that bond that you can't, nobody else knows. Like, it doesn't matter. Even if they did other door-to-door sales, you're kind of part of that group, but like Southwestern is a whole other level of that. And
it's all the inside jokes that you could possibly come up with like the 3 o'clock roll and
the Mort quotes. He didn't know my wife.
She spent all my money, right? Yeah, basically.
So I went a roundabout on that. I'm sorry. But basically, I mean, our lives, obviously, without Southwestern, well, we wouldn't have met in the first place. So that's the biggest one. But just with our careers, I mean, we use our skills every single day.
Yeah.
You know, that we learned from Southwestern. So it's just crazy to me.
Yeah, it's
crazy.
Speaking of the wedding, didn't Shane? Shane gave us a shout out that our wedding was the best,
He
but
said he-
Andres disagreed.
Yeah, he
I
said
did
that.
disagree.
Danny.
It was my second favorite, and I'm biased, but dude, my brother's wedding was so fucking fun.
It was fun. I mean, yeah, Danny and Aisha's wedding was a lot of fun.
If you can admit a bias, we'll accept it.
I'm
All
biased.
4 of us
It
were.
was a good one though. There was a really good too,
I didn't get
and
to
I didn't know it was a
dance with- I didn't get to
competition. But
dance
now
with,
it's a competition. I want to win the competition.
I didn't get to dance with all the people I wanted at your guys' wedding either, so that was also a bummer.
I don't know. I had a lot of fun there, but I'm trying to think because I had a lot of weird things happen to me in my 4 summers selling books, all in New England, right?
What's the
And
weirdest?
Yeah,
So-
let's hear that.
Well, some of the weirdest things was like I caught bird shit, and I told that story last week with Shane. I had a hippie festival in my turf called the Rainbow Festival, where on the side of this mountain in Vermont, there was just a whole group of 10,000 hippies from all across the country that drove all the way across the country to Vermont to just throw a festival, smoking weed and partying and, you know, celebrating the earth and also trashing it at the same time.
I
And then
remember
they'd like leave this festival, all like 10,000 people there, right? There would be vagrants that would go into the turf that I was working and go to like knock on houses and say, hey man, like I'm from California, I need some gas money. Can you like pay me? And I'm just like coming across this by knocking on doors and I'm hearing these stories. And so believe it or not, I took a day to get off schedule and I drove into the Rainbow Festival because I just wanted to see what it was like. It was just this desolate. They were ruining this forest, man. There were like tents and spray paint on trees and like the whole forest was just littered with trash. And it was terrible because those people would go into my turf and go to the grocery store and like poke holes in meat packages so that they'd get thrown out, or like have like wash their hands over produce when it would like spray the mist over it and make it so that they would just like throw a bunch of food out and then they'd go dumpster diving. That was my PR. They thought I was those people my 4th summer.
Well, you drove a Subaru.
Yeah, right, exactly.
And it was like an old Subaru. It had bumper stickers on it that said NPR.
No, it didn't. Fuck you.
They say coexist. With
Yeah,
like,
it's
all the
different letters or like different symbols, or like
PNC.
You would think
All
that,
right, these guys are open-minded.
right?
They're
So
made
anyway,
for
I was
flag stickers.
looking with the magnets on the side of my car, and people were like, "You're the guy who's casing houses," and I'm like, "What are you talking about? You're the guy who's like asking people for money," and I'm like, "I am, but not directly." and so like my Fourth of July that summer, I had my first year roommate just move in with me, Colin Appel, and
My roommate.
he needed to like switch his roommate situation up, and he started living with me, and he actually hit Sizzler that summer after following me, you know, that first week or two, and I was like, damn, let's go. But I had like people calling me out and we're gonna call the cops, and, you know, it was just like a terrible situation, that whole like Rainbow Festival, which was right around the 4th of July. So I don't know.
I would say
if
it's
that was-
worth it. Like, I wish, and this sounds bad, but I wish I would have gotten off schedule to experience.
It's great.
But truly, like, I wish I would have gotten us off schedule to experience some of the things that my town had to offer, because
New England's pretty interesting, isn't it?
so after my last summer, Nicole Hartman, my parents hosted Nicole and like 2 of the other girls that she was
Shout
with.
out.
And one of the days, Nicole went to the lake with my family and I. One day she like rode tractors with my dad. One day she like went to some family thing with us, whatever. But it's like, how cool is that? She would have never gotten to experience those things if she wouldn't have gotten off schedule a
Just-
little bit. And I was a part of that, which is sad, I feel bad saying that, but like, she wouldn't have, she did stay an extra week, but she wouldn't have gotten to experience some of those things if she wouldn't have gotten off schedule, is my point. And so I'm sad. I'm happy that I can say I didn't get off schedule, but really, like, what does that mean at this point? Nothing. I kind of wish that
You still learned what you needed.
I would have gotten to see more things in my town. As far as you want to say something.
Yeah, I mean, I
Go.
think that's a really good point, because like there were those moments that are like I recognized of like, this is like I remember just sitting on a rocking chair with a lady that was maybe tepidly interested in buying books, but it was like looking out into like a forest of like, this is a moment. And you know, the noteworthiness of that specific moment, I don't have a good story to go with it, but it's just like, sometimes it's like are you being forced into getting off schedule because you can't hack it, or but are you choosing to be off schedule because you think that this is a moment that's like going to be impactful in your life, of something that you'll remember? Is this like a moment?
Off schedule, yeah.
This is going to turn a little somber here, but we had my grandma's funeral on Tuesday this week, and you know, the pastor's giving his eulogy and talking about, and he talked about like these moments of like when you're like really present and like recognize the moment, grab the moment kind of by the horns, kind of theme that he was giving. And it's like, you do think of like those moments in your life that you never forget, like that moment where you were, what you were feeling in that moment. The majority of the moments in our lives, you know, we don't really like remember like, oh, I was here at this moment and here's how I felt and here's what I was thinking. But it's like, you know, obviously my grandma's funeral last week, my grandpa's funeral before, just like negative moments can be that way, but then also like positive moments and moments in the book field. Like you're just like, you know, the book field gives you an opportunity to experience the highest highs and the lowest lows. And I think that being able to like appreciate those moments where it's just like, you know, not necessarily good or bad, as I'm like telling this story right here and talking about like just sitting in this rocking chair, but it's like, you know, some of those moments are moments that'll stick with you for your life. And I think that there is a difference between recognizing a moment where it's like, I'm too weak, I can't keep going, and so like I'm off schedule, versus like, this is a moment that like, I'm okay with just sitting here for a little bit and enjoying having this conversation with this person. For whatever reason, their story's interesting. You know, we made a really good connection. For whatever it is, I'm going to stay here a little bit longer. I'm going to end up an hour in this house, and I'm okay with that. You know, that's what I think there is a difference. And that's what you guys are sharing, that it's like, I think it's really cool that you went to that festival, because in the grand scheme of things, years later, it's like, doesn't matter the top end 200 unit day of the $1,000 I made on that day, or the experience that I had in doing something that really kind of stood out. And that's what you really want to, you know, rich is a state of mind, but you know, what makes us rich is the memories that we have. And I think that we're all really lucky to be able to have the memories of selling books, of the highs that we have and the lows, of just that's a memory, the good stories of negative stories and the positive stories of days where you had your best day ever and what it felt like. And
these podcasts, Brandon.
Yeah. So I summarized your podcast all in that little diatribe I just went through.
That's dope. Well, and I think you're right, because I think you're right, just because it's interesting too, because the way your brain works, it doesn't register to remember those moments until after they've happened. Like, for example, I can't remember I can remember most of the driveways that I ever drove into or whatever, but then I can remember vividly with strength and like perfect recollection a couple of ponies, or the freaking craziest like moments that I went through in Southwest. And I have so many of them that it's just like, I didn't think, oh, I should probably remember this, but when they happen, you just kind of like,
you just do
and like
remember.
when you actually go through and ask yourself the really detailed questions of like, what kind of house were they living in? You can like start to like, for me, I can actually go through and see like go through my turf like on Google Maps and say, I actually like zoom in, and I'm like, this is the person.
Give the name of the person who lives at the house that you've zoomed in on Google Maps.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And it's just
On multiple houses.
and it's not every house of the summer, right? It's
No.
those that really stand out, that gave you an impression that's unforgettable. Like that mom who answered the door and she was wearing nothing but a towel, and she was the hottest mom you've seen in all of your 4 summers. Oh my God, like I
That one's
remember
obvious. You save that one for
Did
later.
I tell you? Did I tell you? Did I ever
my
tell you?
husband was there.
Did I tell you about the story about the lady who I got an hour-long massage for the exchange of the second half of the books? Did I ever
I'm
tell
gonna
you?
let you tell this while I can use the bathroom. Oh my God.
All right, so it's just you and I now, Andre. So wait, hold up. You're telling a story about a lady that gave you an hour-long massage as a way to pay for her books?
Yeah. It's a 31-year-old.
Have you shared this yet on this podcast?
No, I haven't. And I've
Sounds
actually
like a really good story. Go ahead. I will
I
shut
have
up.
a lot of good ones, but I don't want to tell all of mine because then there's nothing to talk about whenever I want to share something later on.
That's the beauty of being the guest. I can share whatever the hell I want.
should
You've
have
got to
been-
save some stuff because you got to keep
I probably
people
repeat some
want
of these
more.
stories because not everybody's going to hear every minute of all these. No way.
But this is a good one. Go ahead. Let's hear about your massage.
Yeah, I will say it wasn't an off schedule thing because it was during delivery week. So like delivery weeks, the schedule kind of goes to hell, right? But I was in Pennsylvania. It was my 3rd summer, just in a town called Nazareth, Pennsylvania. It's funny because it's next to a town called Bethlehem, and a lot of my favorite memories of that summer that you're talking about was because that was the summer I was super off schedule, and I made some amazing memories being off schedule. So I'm glad that you said that. But anyway, this lady buys the books. She bought Explore and Learn. Her kid was 9, but he had autism. But when we were showing him the books, it was like the first time. It was really emotional. It was like the first time that the kid had ever like really broken out and got excited and like mentioned like emotion because he was like that kind of autism, whatever. So she was immediately like, I need to get these. But the thing is, she was 31. Dad was no longer in the picture. She was kind of like her mom was living with her because she was sick. So she was like trying to make ends meet. So she was like not broke, but like definitely like tight. And so $120, $140 for the books. In fact, this mom was one of the candidates that summer for like the donations. You know how every summer you give away 1 free set, which I would like to hear some of your cool donations because you probably remember those too. And anyway, so she was a candidate. I ended up meeting a family much later that was in much heavier need, unfortunately. But anyway, and I didn't sell that many books that summer, so I couldn't give away that many books. But so she paid for the first half, and she's like, I'll have the other 70. It's about $70. She's like, I'll have the other 70 when you come back, $69 even if you want to know. And when I came back, she didn't have the money, but she was sitting outside and she was kind of just talking to me. We connected. She's like, I had a crazy summer, but I got to tell you something. I started school, and throughout the whole summer, because it was in May when I ran into her. Throughout the whole summer, I got my masseuse license, and I was like, what? She was, yeah, I had to get like so many hours of people massaged so I could like get the certification or whatever. And I was like, so she was telling me because she couldn't pay, and I was like, what does a masseuse normally charge? She's like, I don't know, like $60. I was like, tell you what. And remember, I say this is towards the end of my delivery week. I deliver for like 5 days. It's when your fucking back hurts. You haven't slept.
This is your first summer?
This is my 3rd summer. You have calluses.
8th graders are starting to look hot at this point.
Calluses on your fingers. You're just exhausted, right? Your book count's been off for 4 days, but it'll even out somehow. And I was like, how about this? How about you just give me a massage for like an hour and 10 minutes or something? She's like, yes. Now, this mom's number 31. To this day, one of the most attractive moms I ever met in the book.
I think I've heard you tell this story. Didn't you talk about something like where did she say undressed to your comfort level?
So, yeah. So she brings me in the house and she's like, yeah. I was like, where's grandma? And she's like, oh, she's out with some friends. This is like 7 p.m. And I was like, where's your kid? And she's like, he's with dad. I'm like, oh. And so we go to the back and there's like a table. She's got the table and it's pretty professional. We got the candles and shit going on. And then she goes, okay. I go, what do we do now? She goes, well, I'm supposed to say that you can undress to your level of comfort. And I was like, what if I get naked? And she's like, I mean,
Andres.
I'd probably do the same thing. And I was like, no way. So I just freaking, and she did.
So she got naked too.
Yeah, dude, she did. But then but again, it was super professional. So I just got in. She did her massage, and that was it. And I got out, and nothing happened. Nothing ever happened. I could swear to this day. But I was just like amazed, dude. I wasn't gonna do that. You know how many stories I've heard of like people who do that kind of stuff in the book field, and then it just goes terribly. I was already like,
I've heard ones that don't go terribly.
I've heard those too, but
There are
still,
lots of stories that have a happy ending.
and that wasn't one of them, of course. But I felt great, and I delivered fantastically the rest of the doubled my summer in deliveries, I believe. After that, so that's great.
All right.
Did you ever use that big dick on the book field?
No,
No, he was asking me.
Nick. I mean, Andres, I'm sure you're a TH as well. But Nick,
what's
you had to have succumbed to temptation at some point, right?
Yeah, I definitely beat my meat. It was self-used, man. Come on, I'm not looking for a lonely mom on the book field. You know, I have heard those stories of moms that are just like, wow, like you're from all the way across the country, like, and you're here at my house, like this. I'm the luckiest mom in this whole school district, right?
All right, we'll go from rated R or X to rated PG-13. Y'all ever seen some boobies? Ever experienced nudity?
I had a mom that was literally like struggling to keep a towel on, and
Yeah.
she was the hottest mom in all 4 of my summers. That was my first summer. I can remember her house, but I've forgotten her name at this point. And
But everybody experiences color.
she was alone at home, you know, she was covering up, and she was like, oh my God, I was showering. What, can I help you? Oh my gosh. I'm just like, oh, I'm the book guy. I'm from Nebraska. And she's just like, yeah, I'm really interested. I got a 4-year-old, come back. And so I eventually come back, and like, I go back to this lady like 4 times when the rule is like 3 times at least, at most rather. And so I just keep going back, and then I eventually get her
times at most.
Yeah, right. Well, I get her when her husband isn't there, and I'm like, we really need to do this. I can't keep coming back, and so I sell that mom, and I didn't get the Facebook picture because that was when we weren't good at getting those just yet. But
I'm labeling this highlight or this like comment, sex and the book field.
oh no.
So people are gonna see that comment and be like, "Oh, we gotta tune in on this." Hold on, Brandon.
The word "sex" is such a buzzword. So
Yeah.
for you guys, in the interest of being able to
Advertising.
create people like get clicks and get sponsorships like you want, that's what it's all about. You put sex in there, people will pay attention.
Oh yeah. So
Hold on, Brandon. We got to hear about some boobies, Brandon. Let's hear about some boobies.
Oh yeah, let's hear about the boobies.
Yeah, let's hear about
Boobies with my
movies.
wife here that she's gonna get pissed at me, and this is gonna like really like not work out well for me if I start talking about boobies and whatnot.
I'm aware.
Oh, I never.
You never.
I don't have the good stories that end with literal happy endings. Seen some boobies. Seen some parent boobies. You know, I always said that, you know, it's like I don't know what's more uncomfortable, like when you see a little kid naked,
Yeah.
or when a little kid sees you naked. They're both very uncomfortable.
I knew this joke was coming. Comedy for too long for me to not. You change your. I recognize the voice that Brandon goes into when he goes into
The cadence and the rhythm.
That's not a good thing to go into stand-up comedy tone and cadence, but
George.
because clearly I've got a different comedy voice in my actual voice. But no, as far as my my experiences on the book field, I don't know. There were probably this is what when you got the blinders on, it's like you're probably so like concerned about the sale that you're less concerned about the nut for sure. That like your main focus is like on the job at hand. But there's a couple of situations where, you know, presented itself an opportunity and you know, where like you'd be interested in entertaining it, or where it's like I gotta get out of here. But I never really like did that. And that's where it goes back to, I think that probably played into somewhat my success. And also, maybe could have played into those oh, that's like an experience of my life. But at the same time, it's I'm glad of kind of the decisions that I made. But there was one time where I knocked on a door, and it was I think that someone didn't hear the knock, and they had a window open, and they walked through, must have been coming out of the shower, where it's you see a set of breasts, and she sees you and then screams and freaks out, and you also scream and freak out, and then leave and drive away, and it's you feel ashamed. But then also it's well, that was kind of cool. I saw some boobies of, whatever 40-year-old mom. And again, it's I do remember this is the part of it where it does you really got to be careful, because you get so pent up and built up. We're college students. We're as horny as we ever get when we're selling. There's no doubt about that it's your hormones are extreme. And then you go out with the intention of all right, I'm not going to I'm not going to have the moment of release for a whole summer. Or if you do,
Oh, I've heard stories of people doing that on drives to Sunday meetings.
Oh yeah, I had when I was it was my 7th summer, one of my first year roommates. It was I don't know how I heard this. He would go into parks, literally a park with children in the park,
No.
masturbate in his car.
We
You hear that kind of stuff.
we
And
never even had sex my last summer when I came out to help you. It was so awkward. It would be we'd see each other at Sunday meetings, and we'd kind of walk away to get our alone time. But literally our alone time was okay, and then we would just hug each other.
Hold on.
It was
Hold on.
oh my God, why can we not have sex right now? But he was so focused on the book field, which is weird to say, because for him, I would have thought you, anyways.
He'd be focused on
Wait,
it.
you're telling me you never masturbated while you were selling books?
oh yeah,
Oh, yeah. Amanda?
Saturday night is your release shower, a hot shower on Saturday night.
Oh yeah.
You don't got to wake up super early Sunday. You're not working as hard, even though you're even if you're in OL, it's that's the shower time, that for sure.
Amanda?
Did I?
She never.
Yeah.
No,
No?
but sometimes we would send pictures of each. I mean, okay, I'm not even gonna get into that.
No.
Oh! Uncensored.
No, I did not. We did not. And we did not
You better
ever,
bookmark this moment
And
in
we
the
did
thing,
not
because we finally got into
ever-
stuff that people are interested in.
we did not ever have sex on the book field, which again does
Should I
attest
live with
how
this one?
focused he was. He was so focused that it was we would literally just hug each other and say goodbye for the week. We never.
Like a friend hug, I pat her on the back.
Which, if you guys know Brandon, that's not in his character.
Not
to
like
just,
a rub,
hug
not like a
at
little,
all.
not a reach down the pants. It's like a pat of
Yeah,
friends,
so-
a side hug like we teach.
That shows he's very focused, because that's not in his personality to just do a friend hug ever.
I'm gonna comment on this. This isn't called Amanda Reveals It All.
No,
Got
there's no revealing. He wouldn't have sex with me on the book field.
nothing to reveal, yeah.
You need to make it one of
There
those
is no revealing.
super very all caps. You should probably put it in, and probably make it most interesting moment in internet history.
No. I wish that I could say that.
I hate
we
that
had
shit when
sex
people do
at a
that, though.
Sunday meeting, but we never did.
Nope.
He was
Nope.
so focused, which again is so weird that
I'm lame in that
Yes.
regard.
on the book field, yeah.
Josh Martinez did it every day, at night. And
There
we
was
were
there was my 3rd summer where I did it most every day before work, after leaving the breakfast spot. I'd go to a fucking gas station, because the
What?
Stewart's gas station in upstate New York was the cleanest, and it was totally fine. You could lock the door, and it got me in a great mood to start my day, because
Nap one off in the morning, huh?
rub one off in the morning.
Hey man, that is the this good content that we're looking for. That's the good stuff, man. Thanks for sharing that.
Hey, I think that was the reason why I picked both my third summer. So
I don't hold that against you, man. You got to do what you got to do.
My first summer, I had a mom because I was 18, and there was a mom who had a college age girl who was home for the summer. But and then two younger kids, boys, and we were selling to the boys, and like the sister was just there, kind of like listening. And the mom was like, I'll buy the books if you take my daughter on a date. And I was like, no, because I was my first year. If I would have been my third summer, I would have said, fuck yeah. I'm not trying to seem like faultless here. No, I would have done it later on. But that first time I was just trying to be like the perfect first year. And I was trying to catch up to Hannah and Katie. So I was like, I got to keep going. So, but that was a time where I was like,
See, but once again, it's like getting off schedule could have really been good for you.
you could have.
Oh, no, don't worry. There were times on my third summer where I got off schedule that it was awesome.
Yeah,
That's
I
okay.
wish I would have had off schedule stories. I really do. Like, seriously, looking back, it's like, okay, whatever. I never got off schedule. That's not cool.
Sometimes being
Like-
bad feels it's good, you know. It's like
Yeah.
it's
Deb and I
hype.
went and got Deb and I watched the movie. In the
You
middle of
watched a
summer.
movie?
That's a really lame getting off schedule. Going to a weed smoking festival like Nick has, or fucking some high school girl is like, that's like cool. Watching a movie is like, that's the lamest off schedule story that you can possibly have.
No, Deb was with me. We met up.
They met up.
Oh, all right. So like fill in. All right.
So both of you got off schedule, met
Yeah.
up, watched just a
And then
movie.
we
Got it. Right.
And
All
then
right.
did that have an happy? Did that story have a happy ending though?
You were saying
He doesn't kiss and tell. He doesn't kiss.
you were saying about
Not my last summer.
you were saying about being
never
bad
met
feels
up.
good. What?
I'm saying like why my last summer did him and I never meet up. I never even followed him. Like couldn't Grant or us have arranged at least a follow day for him and I? Like, come on.
I don't know. Oh, you want to hear something crazy? Is I found this out because my brother and sister-in-law. But I guess when you're married and you're a couple, it's actually they don't make you, but they pretty much tell you to stop knocking at like 5 on Wednesday.
I still don't understand that, and I respect the higher ups as far as their decision making process, but that don't make no sense to
What do
me.
you do after 5?
They're allowed to. They tell them. Well, Dan Morse sat down with Danny and was like, "Hey, you two pick 2 days of the week where you stop knocking at like 5 or 6, and then have a date with your spouse."
Yeah, you
Because they were married on the book field, so they were like, "Your marriage comes first before your job." So
Sure,
take care
sure,
of
I
that.
get that.
which obviously has created a baby. So I mean,
Yeah, and that's how they got pregnant. That's how they got pregnant. Well, and also like Danny and Aisha both swear to the fact that it was so helpful. Like so much to the point where Danny was even like, man, maybe we should have like other people who were like jamming, take it like if it's like, hey, if you have a Wednesday to take off, take it off. Because it like the way that you were able to reset because you had some sort of normalcy, definitely like let you reset for the next day, especially if you had like a shitty Wednesday or something. Then you could like the next because Danny's best days always came after the midweek date or whatever is what he was saying.
My best day statistically was always Saturdays. Naturally, makes sense, all day gravy. But my second best day was always Mondays. After a rest day,
Yeah.
you reset. Statistically, I remember all the canvassing charts. Best day of the week was always Saturday. That makes sense. Second best day, Monday through Friday, was always
Yeah.
Monday.
I think I had like 7 days over 200 units and 5 of them were Mondays. Yeah, I don't know why.
Yeah,
Mondays are
my
good
most
days.
customers in a day was on a Monday. That was 8 customers.
Yeah, same. Okay, hold on. What day did you go to jail though?
Wednesday or Thursday, I think it was.
Yeah.
It was midweek for sure.
What summer? Give us all the details.
Tell us
Summer
this
number,
story.
summer number 2, I went to jail.
Summer
Yeah, it
number
was-
2.
2010.
All right. Unload
We
them.
got a man in the background here cursing out a dog because dog apparently chewed up some shit here. Which, by the way, all right, so before we dive into this story because this one's gonna take a little bit of time. This one's a doozy. Where are y'all at on your drinks? What you got? Elijah Craig here. What pour are you on? I feel like I'm on pour number 5. I feel like
I'm way too buzzed off of 3 beers.
I think this is my third pour, but
I
I
think
want to. I'm gonna get some. I'm gonna go sip on something else. 1 second.
Tell your dad what you did.
Peeps. What did you do?
Just chewed our Christmas light cord.
Pippa.
Ate the cords. Bad girl.
Little Peeps is gonna die here. She's chewing cords.
She just
Oh
chewed
no,
our
she'll
Christmas.
electrocute herself.
That was very bad. I caught her in action. Come on, Pippa. Now, get over here. You can't hide behind your dad all the time. Come on. Bad girl. Bad girl.
All right.
Okay.
And what? So this is the ponytail story apparently, huh?
Well, this is your hallmark story. I mean, this is one of the most standout stories that ever happened.
No, this isn't the pony story. This is just the when you got arrested story.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, we'll do arrested story and then the pony story. How about that?
There. Wait.
I don't know. This one might be better than the pony story, but
Okay, fine.
it don't matter. It don't matter. We'll get it. We'll dive into this on the
Hold
Ponytails podcast.
How about you tell this story, and then at the end of the story, we can decide if that's the good way to close or if we should continue.
Hey, this y'all's thing, so y'all do it
Tell
however
the
you want.
story. We'll decide later. Go on.
But you brought it up, so we'll talk about this is my second summer. I've told this story a lot. I've told it as a 10-minute version. I've told it as a 30-minute version. The 10-minute version is much more tight, kind of
Delivery, like
made for stand-up comedy story, and then the 30-minute version is like I'm drunk and I'm at Sizzler and I'm telling the story about it. And I don't
10
know,
minutes, 10
we'll maybe fall somewhere in between there. But
all right.
all right. So this was in Tangipahoa Parish in Louisiana, in a little town called Tickfaw. So I think that's relevant in the first place. It's called Tickfaw. You know, this is kind of like a backwoods little town here in Louisiana. That's like Louisiana. I remember people talking about like they're the most literally the most corrupt state in the union. I love Louisiana, and if I call Louisiana like Louisiana's part home for me. But also they kind of play by their own rules. Like they're behind. When we had like in Southwestern's like days of like the most like PR issues, Louisiana is like 10 years behind the rest of the country. They weren't even using Facebook when everybody else was dealing with Facebook issues because like they just like aren't technologically advanced there. But I love them. It's like seriously, sweet tea, crawfish, laid back Southern hospitality. Love Louisiana. But pretty stereotypical cops that kind of play by their own rules. I met some really good cops. Actually, I lived with a cop's family, and they actually helped me out my 5th summer. But my 2nd summer, they didn't help me out too much. So my 2nd summer, I had a roommate. Love the guy. Still stay in touch with him. Trevor Monnier. Little redhead, Ron Weasley-looking little guy. Nerdiest little guy. Again, still love him. I'd tell him that to his face. Nerdy-looking little Ron Weasley guy. He'd wear like tube socks and would wear a fanny pack, not just during delivery week when you're collecting cash, but all throughout the summer. Had it like his little like high shorts. I'm like the very nerdy-looking little guy, and that was like his appeal. That was his charm. That it's like he owned it. He really like leaned into that. And so that's how you know him. And this was my 2nd summer, so my first experience as a manager. And it was, I think, week 9 or so. Definitely not early part of the summer. I knew he was going to finish at that point. But we were both kind of hitting a lull in the summer. Not at the, I want to win finish, but still not in the first part of the summer. We were not in the first phase. We were in like the phase where it's like, you should be selling some books. But we both hit a little rut. And we were working in the same county. And in Louisiana, they don't call them counties, they call them parishes. And we were working in the same parish, but different school districts in that parish. And the setup for this story is the day before the event actually happens of me going to jail and he going to jail as well. We were working in our both separate school districts. And my situation is I didn't have a 0 day or anything like that, but it was a tough day. but I was still working just like normal. And I ran into this family that I sat down with, and this is one of those situations we talk about like our memories. I'll never forget this house that I was in. I don't remember a whole lot of what was said, but I do remember kind of the overall theme is that they really weren't interested, and they were kind of jerks or whatever. But I sat down with them. That was like their kitchen table was pretty close to the door that I entered, but it's like I came in, sat down with them. They were kind of closed-minded, sitting there with their arms crossed. And then pretty quickly I recognized that was a no and I left. Kind of end of story. But I'll never forget that because that plays a factor into the story that apparently me not knowing this at the moment after the fact, these guys called the cops. And apparently what they told the cops was that I had cracked a window and like lifted a blind or something like that they were expecting me to come back for a later hit, which in 8 summers, I never touched anybody's blinds ever. And so they completely just blatantly made that up. But they like told the cops that like that I was setting it up, that I was going to come back later. In the moment and that day didn't mean anything. It was just like, a sit down where I was like, not really much comes out of it. So move on. Trevor's situation that same day was he was working in a different school district, same parish like we talked about. But his was a little bit more negative, and that's why ultimately the next day he ends up following me. So that day what he dealt with was like just like one rude person that he runs into that really wants to like take him down. You get those people that it's not just enough that they slam the door in the face, but it's like they want to like ruin your life, ruin your summer. They want to make sure that their presence is remembered. They're known. And so apparently this lady kind of slams the door on him and tells him to like leave the neighborhood, and being a good first year that he is, again, kind of Ron Weasley kind of guy, like this guy's like by the book, doing everything right. And that's what I loved about him is that like, he just did it. It's like, all right, they say no, you go to the next door. Maybe in this instance, it might've benefited him to just leave the neighborhood and go somewhere else because this lady wants to take him down, but he's being coachable and he brushes it off. But this lady like goes to the cops, and, I can't remember if it's the city police or it's probably the sheriff's department. I think that's what it is that he goes to, that she goes to and complains, and then like follows him around like where he's going, is like going to like every house and is like yelling at him and stuff. And like apparently the sheriff has to like send someone to go pick him up and bring him in, and then he comes in, and this sheriff is like this stereotypical 300-400 pound, like big bald guy, like eating donuts. He does not like have a good name for cops. And I'm not saying anything about cops. Some are good and some are stereotypical. This was the stereotypical sheriff or chief of police or whatever he was. And he tells Trevor, he says, if I see you again, then I'm going to throw you in jail. So it's like, just tread lightly is basically what he's telling him, because he's got his permit. He's fine. He's not doing anything wrong. It's just that one lady is causing issues for the sheriff, and he doesn't want to deal with it because he's probably pretty lazy and is coasting. And, we're in a rural parish in Louisiana where it's like, he doesn't got to deal with a whole lot of stuff. It's not like NYPD and dealing with massive murders. He just doesn't want to do a lot of work. And he's just like, I don't want to deal with it. So if I see you again, I'm going to throw you in jail so we can be done with this. So Trevor, being coachable like he is, goes back to work and continues. And this lady is just like continuing to like hound him. And so he doesn't sell anything that day. So we come home and I have, whatever an average day. I have no idea what it was. Trevor has like a 0 day. So, we're talking that night and it's like, all right, we need to have him follow you the next day. Just have him follow you for, I don't remember if it was a half day or full day or whatever it was, but it's like Trevor's following you, getting back on track, which stars align. That was probably the worst thing that we could have done, was have he and I working together, because the cops are after him. And then I get a call on me, apparently, that I'm like casing houses. And so the next day though, we're working together. And I remember it was probably 10:30 in the morning, first school period. And then we go knock on his house. He's just following me, just standing in the back. And I knock on in this garage. We're in the garage, and then the door in the garage that I knock on. So we're standing in this garage, and this guy comes out, and he's like, oh, I saw you guys on the news. They said that if we see some college students from Iowa, we're supposed to call the cops. And I'm skeptical because we haven't done anything, and I personally haven't, experienced anything negative. So I'm like, we've got permits, we're good to go. I'm pretty sure you're mistaken. And he's like, well, it said that we're supposed to call the cops. And I was like, you know what? Like, I'm that confident that it's like, go ahead and call the cops. I'm good. I'm good to go. If the cops come, they're not going to like do anything about it. So why don't you go ahead and call the cops? I'll wait it out. And then that way we can put an end to this bad PR that potentially I could deal with. And this is before like Facebook is like a huge thing yet. Cause this is 2010, my second summer. But it's like we sit and wait, and it's probably 10 or 15 minutes. We're in a legitimately just residential neighborhood, and after 10 or 15 minutes, there's like 4 or 5 cop cars, residential neighborhood, and I'm literally waiting, just patiently waiting. They come flying down. I swear to you, it's probably 50, 60 miles an hour in a residential neighborhood, cherries ablazing, like making the biggest deal. They all pull up, they all get out, they're all like standing up straight. This is the part where, when it comes to some of this like, kind of like Black Lives Matter stuff, and then, I don't want to turn this like super political, but it's like I can see some of this stuff as far as the legitimacy of it. I don't want to turn this all political, but it was like, this is kind of my experience where it's like I was doing nothing wrong, and yet like this is like really like kind of a hardcore, like you're really blowing this out of proportion and gonna straight up cuff us. So like they get out and they're all like standing there of like, y'all got some permits, like, are you like legitimate? And it's like we both pull out our permits. Trevor's got his permit, I've got my permit. Apparently my permit was for city limits. We're outside of city limits, I think. Trevor's is good. He does have the correct permit. I want to add that he has the correct permit. I have the wrong permit, but I have a permit. At the worst case scenario, you think that it's going to be like, all right, just go into town, get the right permit. You're fine. Like I have a permit. It's the wrong one, but it is a permit in the first place. And then like maybe 5 minutes behind as this deputy or whoever is kind of harassing us, and you got this guy standing there watching the whole situation, and we've got like 4 or 5 cop cars that are just like strip interrogating us. And then the chief of police comes and he gets out, like lifts up the belt with like the jeans or the pants that barely fit. And then, 300-400 pounds, this big guy. And he points at Trevor. I've never seen this guy. He points at Trevor and he says, I told you if I saw you again, I was going to throw you in jail.
No.
And he says, book him, man. And we're like, seriously, dude, book us? So that's when they're like, all right,
you're selling books.
Yeah. So we both get cuffed. We get thrown into the back of separate cop cars. And we're just like both sitting there on our own as we see that they have like called in a what is it? They've got a tow company that's going to tow my car away. They've confiscated my bag. They've taken out all the checks that I have for that week. And we're just sitting there like, what the fuck is going on?
Wow.
Wisely, I do take note of what towing company is towing my car away as we're ready to go into the county jail. And they were sitting there again in separate cars. It's not like he and I can like talk about like what's the best reaction at this point, but it's just like kind of like man, this is fucking bullshit. But I'll never forget the moment the chief of police opens the door, looks in at me, and says, "We have video evidence of you cracking a window open so that you can come back later and rob this house. Do you have anything that you want to tell me?" And I look him straight in the eye and I say, "No, you do not. And there's nothing that I want to say." And he says, "Okay." And he closes the door. And again, I know some, and again, I've got like book stories that this won't take place in this story, but I know some really good cops. But that also does tell me that like there is some corruption that takes place, and that gets into some of like the part that's like I'm not as comfortable and just like speaking generally about different situations because I've experienced very good and very bad, and it's like that's where it's like, the good cop bad cop does take place where it's like there are certain situations where it's like, no, I know what happened, and I know that you're lying to me, and that's fucking bullshit, but you're the authority figure, and you're telling me a lie to try and get me to, like, say something that didn't happen. but I stood my ground and I was proud of that. And so then, when finally things wrap up, they tow my car away. They confiscate all of our shit. I'm cuffed in the back of this car. Trevor's cuffed in the back of this car. He hops in. The driver of the squad car that I'm in hops in. He's ready to drive me back. And like, I'm again, I am being a good book guy at this point, where it's like, I'm not like yelling and making like a big scene, because generally it's like the more negative you get in situations, that's not going to help you. So it's like, you need to like win them over with kindness. So I am trying to maintain the best attitude possible in this situation. And so like, I'm talking to the guy driving the squad car. It's like, where are we going? Like what's my next steps? How do I get out of this? I'm just a college student from Iowa. And that's where it's like, the guy driving the car, he really was kind of on my side. And we're like about to like drive to the station, and then the chief of police drives by. So where they're like talking out their windows, talking to each other. And he's like, what do we need to do from here? And he's like, book them. And he's like, so I got to do all the paperwork. And he's like, yep. So then we take off, and that guy's like all pissed. He's like, I got to do all the paperwork on this. Like, I have to do with like the arrest work for it. He's like, you guys shouldn't even be in this situation. He's really kind of on my side at this point, because it's like, it really is kind of bullshit. But again, it's just this chief of police is like, I didn't want to fucking deal with it. So I'm going to arrest him. I'm going to give my guy, my deputies all the work that they got to do. So they drive us to the station. It's like 20 miles away. We get in there. We're sitting in there. Again, we got me, we got him, we got Trevor. We're wearing polos and khaki shorts, and he's got a freaking, fanny pack on. We're not your ideal thugs that get booked in the Tickfaw Parish jail. But we're there, and we're sitting and we're waiting, and we got to get our mug shots taken, and we smiled for our mug shots, which they said is not very common there, because like, when you're getting your picture taken, and we're like, big old smile, like, and we get booked, and they give us our one call that we got to have, and I it's like, who, you get one phone call, who do you want to call? And we're talking to like the people that had no idea what the situation is. They're just sitting there, kind of the dispatch or whatever, and they're sitting there of like, they don't know anything that's going on. They're like, you guys are not the typical people that we see in here that are like, coked out or whatever it is, of like causing like a major situation. And we're there like, yeah, we're college students from Iowa just selling books, and just like making conversation with them and being kind of in book mode, where it's like you win them over with your confidence and your personality and your upbeat sense of urgency. Not exactly what they expected. So we both smiled for a mugshot. I've still got my little band that they put on my wrist that has my inmate number and my picture, and I've still got that, and I'll never forget this experience. But we get our one phone call. Trevor calls his dad. My first year student calls his dad and was like, Dad, I'm in jail. You got to get me out. And I was like, oh, man.
No.
And for my one call, it's like, all right, I got to be judicious. I got to be smart about this. No. I called Trey Campbell. I'm like, can you guys look up a number for me? And they're like, yeah, we'll look it up. I'm like, just like look up online, search Southwestern Customer Contact Center. They type in Southwestern, like Southwestern Truth, Southwestern Scam. Is that what it is? And I'm like, oh God, no, not that one. Southwestern Company. Type on that one. And so they get in, and it's like, all right, give me the customer contact center. And it's whatever it is, 615-861, whatever. And they call, and I fortunately get a hold, because this is like early afternoon probably. And then I hear Southwestern Customer Contact Center. This is Trey Campbell. How can I help you? And I was like, Trey, what's up, man? It's Brandon Q. And he was like, hey, Brandon, how's it going? And I was like, hey, man, I'm in jail. Can you get me out? You just hear his tone change, but not to the point where he's like overly concerned, just like the tone that he's like disappointed, because he's clearly dealt with this in many situations in the past. And he's like, all right, where are you at? And I was like, I'm in Tickfaw, Louisiana. He's like, okay, we'll work on it. And I was like, all right, man, we'll talk to you later. Bye. Hang up. And I said, that's it. And I was like, all right, I got someone working on this. At least the outside world knows what we're dealing with. So Trevor, let's just like do our time and ingratiate ourselves with the inmates. So they take us back, and we got to get our jumpsuits. So like we'd walk back and then like they have us strip down to our underwear each, and then they try and pull out the jumpsuit that's gonna fit us the best, the orange jumpsuit. Literally, as we're talking about this, I'm like, Trevor, we need to like try and get these as like souvenirs. I really want to keep this thing. And so I'm trying to like keep a super positive attitude. They get one, they're like, how tall are you? I'm like 6'8". They're like, we don't have any that are tall enough for you. You're gonna be wearing like straight up like flood pants, like Shane Hertig at GRS pants, you know, like the ones that like clearly like only go halfway down your shins, the kind that you make a joke about when you host the Freddy's. So they give us our little jumpsuits. They also give us like pillows and toiletries and toothpaste and soap and all this stuff. And you just like, you're like holding it. And it's like, then you go into a holding cell. So we go into a holding cell. That's like before we get booked into going to the actual prison. So when we go in there, it's Trevor and I, and then we got this like old, like mafia looking white dude. And then you got two other black dudes. There's 5 of us in this holding cell entirely. Trevor goes down and just like sits on this clearly like rolled out mattress, which is one of the things they gave us, the rolled out little kind of thin mattresses. It's like, that's your bed that you sleep on. He just sits on like the old mafia guys looking mattress, which is clearly laid out on the bench. And I'm like, Trevor, like move, man. This guy is like legit like a criminal. And then there's like the other dudes, and it was like he gave him kind of a look, and like we're just like sitting there like waiting, and like nobody's really kind of saying anything. We start to make a conversation with the old mafia looking white guy. I was like, so you know, what are you in here for? And he says that he's in there for murder. The old white guy's in there for murder. And we're like, what about those guys? They're not really talking much. What about those guys? And so one of the black guys, he's like, well, he's got a jaw wired shut because apparently he assaulted a cop and they broke his jaw. So now his wired shut. And we're like, what about that guy over there? And that's the other black guy that he's not really saying anything. And they're like, yeah, he got drunk and kicked down his ex-girlfriend's trailer's door. And then her new boyfriend shot him in the chest 3 times. And so now he's peeing through a tube. So he's not going to say much. We're like, okay. And then the guy like turns it on us. He's like, what are you guys here for?
This is hilarious. Keep going.
So we're like, we like kind of like, you know, like puff our chests out and like get all serious and you know, like get him in. We're like we're in jail here for it's pretty hard. We're selling books, man. You got to make it like sound as tough.
Is this
as
part of your
possible.
bit, or is this actually what you said? What you did?
No, that's legitimate. That's what we said. We're like, but we had to I had to build it up with like, oh man, we're like selling children's books. It's like it's pretty hard stuff, you know. Like we are worried at that point. Like I don't want to like be like timid, so like I have to like a little bit build it up. But it, like we said, like selling books, man, selling kids' books, you know, just because you don't know what's going to happen in that situation. And fortunately, like, so we're talking to this guy a little bit, and you know, he doesn't pose any sort of threat, but we are like very kind of like on high alert at this point. But then like, so they're going to book us, so they call our names, and we leave the holding cell, and they take us through to put us into the actual like kind of community area. And so they got to like take you through one door, and then you get through that door, they close the door behind you. It's you. So it was me and Trevor and this guard, and they take you through a door, they close the door behind you, and then like once the other one's closed, and they open up the next door, and you walk through that one, they close that one. And then you're going by all these kind of jail cells, and you start getting really kind of heckled by some of the different people that are like, you know, shouting cuss words at you. And it's kind of an intimidating situation. Yeah. Oh yeah. Fresh meat. You know, it's like they're like, oh man, am I going to get freaking raped in here? Like you are kind of worried. It's like, you know, like the young little petite guys, especially, you know, Ron Weasley there. It's like he's screwed, man.
Carpet match of drapes.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. And so we finally get back into the kind of little community area, and we're sitting in there. So it's like all the cells are kind of open, so you get to mingle with some of the other kind of inmates. And we're sitting in there, and the people that came out and like talked to us, we talked to them, and we all kind of hit it off a little bit, or just like kind of chatting with them. They didn't really like come up and try to intimidate us or anything. But then we're sitting there. It's like, all right, so how do we kill the time? Because like we know that again, I've got Trey Campbell working on it. They're trying to get us out. So I'm not necessarily like super worried about it. It's like no one knows that we're in here. I know that people are gonna figure it out, but it's like we really can't do anything. We don't have our books. That's probably like where it's like it feels like you've got that like internal kind of feeling that's going. That's like there's nothing I can do. Are we supposed to like practice like approaches or something like in that situation?
No.
Maybe that would have been like the most like book answer I could have given. But at that point I was just like, all right, Trevor, let's just hang out, man. Like I'm still being positive, but like I'm not gonna like try and like practice the sales talk.
No, you're supposed to set goals for next summer because your current summer is shot at that
So
point.
you're how long were you in jail for?
It was a couple hours. It was a few hours, and at this point, it's probably early or mid afternoon that we're saying again. It was kind of like late morning that we went in, and this is like early afternoon at this point. And I remember we were playing chess, and the chessboard that they had like none of the pieces. The pieces were like broken, or they had like bottle caps that like represented like the pawns or the rooks, and then they had like a small little TV that you couldn't adjust the channel on. It just had one channel. It was like CBS. And we were like watching like Wayne Brady's Let's Make a Deal. And I'll never forget this moment here because, again, summer of 2010, we were going to Jamaica as the Sizzler trip. And we were sitting there kind of like half watching Wayne Brady's Let's Make a Deal. And one of the grand prizes that they had on the episode was a trip to Jamaica. So I kind of nudged Trevor and I was like, you see what they're like going to win right there? It's a trip to Jamaica. And I was like, let's remember this moment right here because we're going to look back on this when we're sitting on the beaches in Jamaica and we're going to laugh about this. And this is like such a negative situation, but we are going to remember this moment right here. And this is going to be a big thing. And this is a very positive thing. I remember I told him that. And it was like, that's what, like, ultimately all throughout everything that's going on, I just remember that it's like, I got this first year that's like watching everything that happens. And again, 90%, 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react. That's all about, how you react in the situation. And we just kind of sit there and then we're playing. We talk to like the inmates and they're like, if you guys get out, because I'm like, oh yeah, we'll get out at some point. They're working on it, and then we shouldn't be in here. And they're like, all right, so if you guys get out, you give us all of our toiletries. And I'm like, yeah, I'll give you all the toiletries. I'll give you my toothpaste, my toilet paper, everything. You got it, man. And after a few hours, I was kind of excited. Honestly, I was kind of excited to eat like a prison meal because I saw some of the other people had like the bags of milk that you just stab a straw in, and so I was kind of excited to like, get to experience like a prison meal, the kind where like Breaking Bad, they like stab a bunch of knives in you and get to like hang out and you got to make friends. I was kind of looking forward to it. Unfortunately, we weren't in there long enough to be able to experience that. And I think Ron Alfred's got a story of actually staying overnight in jail. So he's probably even got a better story than me. But we were in there for a few hours. And then at a certain point, I hear over the intercom, they're like, Brandon Q, Trevor Monnier, you guys are free to go. And we're like, all right, that's our call. And we give like our stuff to our guys. We've been there again. It's probably mid-afternoon at this point, maybe 3 or 4 or something like that. And then they open the doors and we go out and they open each of the doors and we go out. And then they say, all right, you guys are free to go. They give us our clothes back. I asked to buy the jumpsuits. They don't allow it. So I do not have that. But I do have, again, the wristband that's got my face on it, my inmate number on it. Apparently what happened was, I think that somehow like the DA, the district attorney of the parish, had sold books or either knew someone who sold books, but there was a connection of a connection of a connection. Not what you know, but who you know. It somehow got us out, and it was like all charges dropped. Not on your record, just all charges dropped. Southwestern worked its magic.
Yeah, we know that wasn't the case for our last case, or our last guest who had his charges dropped from a blue light special. That bit him in the butt as of Thursday.
Yeah. Shane's still dealing with shit. So wait. Sorry, you saying off the record and then what?
So they give us our clothes back and everything. We're free to go. But the thing is, they just say, you're free to go. I don't even have my car at this point because, remember, it was towed away. So they're just like, you're free to go. I'm like, so, all right, so how do I get back to, like, normal life? And they're like, I don't know, and I don't care. Just you're free from here. So we walk out, and he and I are just standing there back with not even our book bags, but literally just our clothes that we came in with. It's like we have nothing except our clothes, and we're just released from jail. It is, and I don't know if this takes place in kind of every community. Maybe it is. If I learned anything from Ocean's 11, it's like you got to have someone pick you up. I didn't have anybody picking me up. It was like we just like walked out of jail, and it's like you're a free man, but you have nothing going on. So I was like, all right, now we're back on like book schedule, but it's like 4:00 at this point. So I'm like, what do we do next? I'm like, well, I guess we just start running. We got to try and locate my car, and then we can get. So we just start running down the street until we can like get to like a main road and try and find a gas station. Fortunately, again, hindsight, like I was smart. I saw what the towing company was. So I'm like, that company's got my car. I got to call them. So we run to a gas station. Don't have cell phones. It's not like you can just like Google this towing company to find out their number. It's like I got to go to a gas station, get a payphone, get in the yellow pages. This is such a thing that our children will have no idea about of the struggles. But I got to like look up the number of this towing company. Unfortunately, I remember what the towing company was, so I call them, and they're like, "Yeah, we got your car. You come pick it up. It's like $300 to get it out." So I'm like, all right. So I call a towing company or call a cab service to drive us there. It takes like 20 minutes to get there. And so then I go there, I got to pay like $300 just to get my car out, and they give me my car. So it's probably right around like 5:30 at this point. And I get back in my car, and it's Trevor and I. And so we call Nick Henderson, my DSM, and we're like, all right, so everything we dealt with, and again, I called Trey Campbell. He let Nick know that we were there, so Nick knew kind of what the situation was, and he was like, all right, so it's 5:30ish right now. What do you guys want to do? Do you want to go home? Like at this point, it's like you get most of the Southwestern people, district sales managers, directors. They're like, all right, go back to work. Answer to every problem. Lies behind the next door. With everything that we've dealt with at this point, he's like, do you just want to go home, or what do you want to do? And me being the good manager that I am with setting a good example for Trevor, I'm like, I mean, we've got all of gravy left, so why don't I just go back to work, and then I'll talk to you when we get done. And I probably hear a little tear come down. Like, he's so proud of me at that point. And again, this is, to be fair, this is very motivated by the fact that I'm setting an example for a first-year student. So I'm like, I'm going to go out, and we're going to have a great gravy. And so he's like, all right, man, like, you go out and kill it, and I'll talk to you tonight. And so then we go out, and it's like 5:30, and we go out for gravy. We have not had a customer at all. And I'm like, Trevor, you know what's going to, like, make this story? We're going to go out, and we're going to kill it for gravy. So we go out, and we bust our asses. We knock on a shit ton of doors for the last 2 gold periods, and we go out and we have a steak day, and then we go out, and it turned out to be a super profitable day. So, mic drop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good shit, Brandon Q.
That was a long story.
Yeah,
Super long story. I don't know if it was longer. 15. That's why I said 15. That's why I said the short version's 10, the long version's 30 minutes.
Baller.
So as far as the time stamping on this, you can end it right here. And then I also must divulge that actually I didn't have a single customer in gravy. I didn't sell any units. I had a 0 day that day. So it actually turned out to be
And Trevor's dead.
And Trevor didn't make it. Trevor went and drove home the next day.
He did.
No, actually, so like the thing that I am proud about. So yes, it is true. That was one of the 0 days. It honestly is one of my proudest moments of the fact that like we did go out for olive gravy and we worked. I didn't sell anything, but we did work. I am really proud of that. Trevor did hit Sizzler, and we did both go to Jamaica. And then on the beaches in Jamaica, when you have your little rocks and you throw them out, it is probably one of like the most noteworthy moments of my life is when we were like looking back on that, everything we went through. And I maintained a positive attitude throughout all of it. But it also does kind of give me like a realization into like they say that like life is not fair. It really isn't. Like that was kind of a shitty situation, but at the same time, white privilege. I have definitely been very fortunate in my life, but I have experienced kind of these unjust situations And I do feel for individuals of all different walks of life that have experienced injustices in their life, and that's a small thing that was just kind of really one shitty day, but it is just like a kind of a glimpse into a world that other people live in that I fortunately on the whole have not had to deal with. But that's kind of my pony story. Even though it's not a pony, it's one of the most memorable experiences of my life as far as that day. And again, in the moment, it sucks, but it's also like I'm recognizing like this is a life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react. And looking back on it, it's one of my proudest days of my Bookfield experience.
Woo!
Hell yeah.
Go Brandon.
This is the reason we do this podcast. This is great. This is awesome. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. And this way we can still save some pony stories so we can have you on again sometime down the line.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I've got tons of other stories. Trevor sold 3 summers. Obviously I sold 8. So, you know, the reaction that we had on that day didn't derail his summer. He hit Sizzler that first summer, and then he did 3 summers, and you know, that was a great experience. And so that's probably one of my most memorable stories. But I got some other ones that I'd love to share with you guys. You know, when you actually get some intro videos and you got a little more structure, because like part of what I'm wanting to know is like, are you guys how are you guys even kind of co-hosting this thing? You know, is it like a David Letterman and Paul Schaefer kind of thing, or are you like legitimate kind of equal co-hosts? And that's the stuff that you guys got to figure out. But I think you got something kind of cool here, but it's just really kind of taking it to the next level as we go. So, you know, we got Jeffrey, we got Shane, we got me, of kind of your early guys, and then when you're really kind of established something here, then I want to come back on your show.
Hell yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, I think the original idea when I started thinking about doing a podcast is I wanted to do it with 2 people hosting, two hosts, so that way if we ever got several people, it could be like a more fun of a diverse conversation. I didn't ever want to just do it by myself, and then that way if there was like a time where I was not available, then like the other person could run it. So we're doing this equally.
We're figuring it out. What we got to do is we're getting a YouTube channel created to upload all these videos to. We're even going to think about maybe even like cutting and editing things so that we get rid of the boring stuff and only give the good hits. But that's not anything we're going to concern ourselves with until, you know, we can just get a good flow going, because all we're doing is we're just booking people out for the next few weeks, which is stuff we've already got lined up. So it's time to just make a new thing, you know, and see where it goes.
Cool.
Yeah. We'll upload this to YouTube and send you the link so you can share it to your social medias. Or if you want to share this to social media, some of these fun stories, it's up to you. It's your discretion. But yeah, man, this is fun. I'm glad we did this.
Rock on.
Tell your friends about us. Anybody you would recommend that you'd want to see? I probably should ask you that.
What do y'all got in the works? You got any? I don't know. Maybe there's some confidentiality stuff with your.
We got Phil Zulke
docket.
tomorrow. We got Phil Zulke tomorrow. Even though it's like a quick turnaround, we're just putting him right in there.
Phil, oh, you got to postpone that. You got to let this simmer before you start talking to Phil.
No, your episode doesn't matter, Brandon. We're gonna book you again. So
this ain't my thing. It's your guys' thing. You can do whatever you want.
Who's
right. We're just trying to like get reps in right now. So Phil's tomorrow. Sydney and Dove is next Thursday, and then Sarah Ayub is a good friend who's we're getting her lined up for this next weekend, and then after that Victoria Olas, and then Sydney Mead. There's a bunch of people getting lined up. So
I'm working on Tim Ritzer.
I want to see Yvette or Grant.
Yeah, some of the DSMs, the directors.
Or Merkel.
Yeah.
McCroskey. Some of like the old, like super old dogs with some strong. I mean, Lee would kill it. Obviously, everybody knows.
Everybody wants
Lee's stories are. Shout out if Lee ever watches this. He was like a guy, like when I like obviously going into stand-up comedy, that it's like Lee just seemed to be like the stand-up.
We can try and get Rory Vaden. That's what.
Rory,
one thing
like
we-
one of the Toastmasters best speakers. I look up to Rory, Lee. Those are some of the guys outside of like the book selling that like I have some of the most respect for as far as a kind of public speaking and what they were able to be able to like create a standard for me that I always continue to strive for. So yeah, I'd totally watch some of those and
we'll figure it
if
out.
y'all stick with it, if you guys are not going to be early champions on this and you truly stick
Yeah.
with it, I'd love to be able to see some of the.
It's a process. I'm not in the stage of this needs to be figured out completely just before we get started. It's more of a get it started and figure it out as you go. So we're having fun with it. It's been a great pleasure having you, Brandon, Amanda, Georgia, Pippa, Shane, and Jeffrey, all these great guests. It's an exciting time to be alive because we got nothing else to do but just to chat over a Zoom chat on a Saturday. The Huskers won today. Go Big Red. Chiefs are going to win tomorrow. Go team. But that's just me. Anyway.
Packers? What about the Packers and the Vikings?
Aaron Rodgers will see Pat Mahomes in the MVP race, okay? Who are the Vikings? I don't know. Anyway, this year's great.
Rude.
Even though it's been the worst year of all time, stick to your goals, do some cool things, and change your life by knocking on a door again. I don't know. Shit. We'll see y'all on the other side.
All right,
All right.
Bye.
Peace out, homies.
See you guys.
Adios.
Love y'all.
Peace.
Bye.